Oh, we have been blessed, haven't we? The Santos Tour Down Under, the 19th edition. The weather is perfect. Be safe, be seen, stage 6. This fiery sprint around the city of Adelaide, 90 k's in all. 34 degrees, it is a tad warm if you're on a push bike, but apart from that, absolutely perfect. And the stage is set for Caleb Ewan or Peter Sagan, one of these guys, to win this final stage. But Richie Porte, well, he stays safe, Phil and Paul, and he has won the Ochre jersey.
Yes, he has. Of course, he's got to be very careful on this final stage because he's only got a 48-second buffer, but that should be enough. Great battles, though, for the runner-up position.
It's been a great week of racing. In fact, it's gone so quickly, I can hardly believe we've come up to the final stage. But as always, a final stage is always pretty dramatic. And Richie Porte, yes, theoretically, he's going to run out the overall winner, but he's got to be very careful because these street circuits, they can be quite dangerous.
Yeah, first event of the UCI World Tour, and we saw in the interview that you conducted with Richie Porte yesterday, Paul, his map, his plan for the year is already there, isn't it? Because he's moving towards July and hopefully winning on the Champs-Élysées.
That's his big next target, of course. He's being groomed for the Tour de France. He will lead his team in the Tour de France. The other rider, TJ Vanguard in the USA, will not ride the Tour de France. It's all for Richie, and this is the first stepping stone successfully crossed.
Well, that's for Richie, but when you look at the strength of the other teams and the riders that they brought here, they're regarding this race with much, much higher esteem than they did maybe 19 years ago when it first started, because everybody wants to come here and get points in the first race of the year to go on for the next races in the calendar.
Yeah, this has been a great advertisement, not only for the city of Adelaide and the state of South Australia, which is just a ripper, but also the depth and ability of Australian cycling. Let's have a look at the week that we've just had. The opening stage of the Santos Tour Down Under saw the riders travel from Unley to Lindok, which was decided with a sprint to the line.
Coming from the far right is Caleb Ewan, and Sagan realised it's all to no avail here. Van Poppel is also trying to come through, but Ewan is unbeatable at the moment.
I'm super happy to get that win. It was a really close one in the end.
Paracombe Hill was the final destination for Stage 2. After a couple of failed breakaway attempts, the decisive move was made with 2.5k left to go.
Richie Porte goes. He said it this morning, I'm not going to wait, I'm going to go with everything all the way to the top.
Boy, he's showing some strong legs to the race.
And look at the gap opening up behind.
This is a superb performance by Richie Porte.
I know it's not over, it's a few quite hard stages, but you know, I'm quite confident.
Stage 3, we saw the first crash of the tour from Glenelg to Victor Harbour.
They've gone down at 60k an hour.
As Caleb Ewan once again got the better of world champion Peter Sagan.
Shoulder to shoulder as Peter Sagan comes and bursts through from the middle, the world champion, but the little imp is there. Caleb Ewan pops out from the inside, takes it on the line. I've never seen this guy so confident in his sprint. That was brilliant.
A breakaway at Stage 4 threatened to build a gap too big for the peloton to chase. But the splinter group dropped members, and lone frontman Jack Bauer's lack of support meant he couldn't quite hold on.
Well done, Jack Bauer. That was an incredible attempt.
After descending Gorge Road, another sprint finish was then on the cards.
Caleb Ewan in the red jersey got onto the back wheel of Van Poppel. Caleb Ewan is coming out of the pack with another show of enormous strength. He wins again. Sagan is second.
I really couldn't have asked for a better start to the year.
All eyes were focused on Ochre jersey wearer Richie Porte as we headed to Stage 5. The quartet of Clark, De Gent, Maison and Bauer made an early breakaway and established a lead of 3 minutes over the peloton. 4 became 3 as Clark dropped off, and De Gent temporarily overtook Porte in the KOM standings as he led Bauer over the line on the first lap of Wollonga. The trio put up a valiant effort, but were eventually caught with 6k to go. Second place, Izagirre couldn't keep up with the front runners and dropped back, while Porte was well positioned within the leading group.
In a definite split there now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sebastian are now causing the damage. pace is going up because look who's going at the front. Richie Porte is on the pedal.
Porter's gone now. Who can go? Ainau's going to give it a shot. He's caught Chavez. This is deja vu. The only difference, Robbie, today he wears ochre.
Richie Porte is on the loose.
He's now going to finally have his big day. Every time he looks over his shoulder, he's seeing the empty road now. We've seen some atmosphere on this climb, but this is very, very special. Tremendous. Richie Porte surely is going to give us the two-handed salute. Yes, he is. He is the champion of the Santos Tour Down Under elect. Tomorrow, he will be crowned in Adelaide.
Tell you what, that hurt more than the other three that I've won up here. It was incredible teamwork today, and I'm just happy to finish it off for the guys.
Oh, he's a champion, isn't he? Richie Porte, and a champion guy as well, which just tops it off. And that's the way the ochre jersey looks right at the moment.
Yes, and well, we know Richie Porte's nicely ensconced there with his lead of 48 seconds. But take a look at Chavez, Haas and McCarthy. They're split by 6 seconds. There's 3-second time bonuses on the course, and McCarthy and Haas are very good sprinters. So there's still a battle.
It's going to be a massive battle out on the road because I'm pretty sure that Jay McCarthy, who finished 4th in this race last year, he doesn't want to be 4th again.
All right, today, fast and furious, argy-bargy sprinting. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Now, we saw a massive crowd yesterday. I think it was the biggest we've ever seen around the course from McLaren Vale to Wollonga. That crowd's going to come down the road. It's only 45 minutes drive. They'll all be here today. Be a wonderful atmosphere. The weather might be a problem because the wind is getting up, and some of the local people are saying, top of the day, this wonderful day could turn out to be wet.
Well, it's, the temperature's getting up to around 34 degrees Celsius, but it's the heat of the racing that I'm excited about because it most certainly will be a bunch sprint down towards. And that's probably one of the most exciting finishes that you can have in a bike race.
Yeah, and it's been a carnival, it's been a festival. We had the Great Legends dinner last night. We all had the honour of hosting that. And Johnny Stephenson has been amongst the fans all week, having a great time. He's done a great job, Johnny Stephenson. I won't want to say that to him personally, but I'll say that to him on the telly. Here's Johnny Stephenson and his latest fan cam.
Well, it's the second last day of the Santos Tour Down Under, and I'm here in the beautiful McLaren Vale region, which is home to one of the cycling highlights of Adelaide, the Shiraz Trail. McLaren Vale is home to some of the most celebrated wine labels in the world. There are more than a dozen cellar doors you can access from the Shiraz Trail. The ride is a leisurely 60 minutes. That's if you can avoid the temptation of the wineries and the amazing food available along the way. At the southernmost end of the Shiraz Trail is Wollonga and the beast of a climb, Santos Tour Down Under. Before the big boys come through, they've opened the road to the public. Let's go up and see who wins this iconic stage. Another of the great events of the Santos Tour Down Under is the Wollonga Hill Walk-Up. So boys, give me the breakdown here. There's paella, there's a punch, there's chairs, there's even a horn.
It's about cycling, it's about friends, it's about having something to eat, it's about having a good time. Look at the crowd, fantastic.
Who do you think is going to win today?
Richie Porte.
If you can get down here next year, get down here. This is sensational.
Do you mind if I take a seat over there and rest these legs up? Oi, 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 out the way, boys, can't see. I have to admit, one of the best ways of watching the Santos Tour Down Under is in one of their corporate marquees that is right here trackside. I couldn't think of a better way to end a good day. This is a good way to watch the race.
Oh, I couldn't think of a better way to do it, hey?
You reckon these boys will suffer today?
Oh, they're suffering already. First time round, you can see it on the faces.
I have with me Tracy Gaudry from the UCI. I saw Tracy yesterday up Checker Hill, but she didn't only just go up it, she raced up and then waited for me at the top.
Whether you're the vice president of the UCI or someone learning to ride a bike, the Tour Down Under has something for everyone. We were just amongst the masses enjoying what we love to do, riding a bike.
Can't think of a better way to watch the cycling, eh?
It's a cracking day. We've really enjoyed it, actually. Just getting into the atmosphere. You can obviously tell who the Australians are when they're coming up the hill. Everyone cheers. The men in lycra.
I need to get in some lycra.
He loves the Lycra, Johnny Steph. He does some pretty big cycling these days. All right, with that, we want to welcome the Tourism Minister here in South Australia, good mate of ours, Leon Bignell. How are you, Leon?
Very well, thanks, Tim, and Phil, great to see you too.
Yes, looking at those pictures yesterday, look, you love South Australia, full stop, but that's your backyard, isn't it? McLaren Vale, Wollonga Hill.
Yeah, it's an amazing part of the world. I live in McLaren Vale. It's obviously produces great wine, you know, the whites and the reds down there, and one of the few wine regions in Australia, indeed in the world, that has that beautiful coastline that runs along it.
It's just breathtaking, Phil.
It is. Well, I love the place now. Let's have a look at some of the pictures, though, Leon, which we've seen over this week of racing. Crowds, as ever, got off to a great start with the People's Choice Classic. This race, somebody said to me this morning, Adelaide has changed over the last 19 years, and it wasn't a cyclist, it was a person in the street, and they're right, aren't they?
Absolutely, and it was, I think what happened was, Mike Turner came up with the idea for this race, and South Australians got behind it, and I guess it coincided, the birth of the race coincided with Stuart O'Grady, Robbie McEwen, Brad McGee, all those guys moving over from the track into the road racing, and so as they were doing things in the Tour de France and other great road races around the world, we had our own great race developing here.
All right, finally, as we wrap up this week and look at these pictures, we move on from here into the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, look, next year's going to be really exciting. We want to pay homage to the past and bring back some of the great things that we've done over those previous 19 races, but we want to make the Festival of Cycling bigger. So people who come here from interstate or overseas, it's not just about a bike race and the best bike race outside of the Tour de France. It's also about everyone having a great time here. We've got 200 cellar doors within an hour's drive of Adelaide. Phil's been to most of them, and we want to, and great seafood and other food. So look, it's a terrific state to visit, and we welcome people any time of the year.
Thanks, Leon. I've got a few more boxes to tick, so I need to be back for the 20th anniversary. Leon Bignell, the Tourism Minister, will catch up with you soon. Phil, this is the Santos Tour Down Under, Stage 6. Be safe, be seen. The furious ride around the streets of Adelaide. We'll be back in just a tick.
You know, over the last few years, leading out has changed a little bit. There's a lot more teams with a lot of good sprinters, so, you know, positioning's the key.
You're having a little look around you, you can sense people come in.
A lot of jostling for position, a lot of shouting.
Sometimes you get boxed in. You kind of have to lose your fear a little bit. Trying to think about when to start your sprints and what wheels to follow.
But if you've been put in a good position and you feel in that moment, then it's just like a second nature almost.
A good sprint usually goes for maybe 12 seconds, 13 seconds. You can get up to 75, 80 k's an hour. Your heart rate's maybe like 200s.
You just put your head down and then you just go for the best possible result.
Oh, Caleb Ewan, he's only diminutive in stature, but isn't he huge? And look at the city of Adelaide. Absolutely beautiful Adelaide Oval, of course, the renovations that have been done there. Just extraordinary, really, with the bridge up into the city. And we're going to see some of the best of Adelaide today.
I think we really are, because the city itself looks resplendent. This is a traditional end to any Santos Tour Down Under. We're downtown. We've got the beautiful River Torrens. You can run up and down, you can ride your bike up and down it, and you can row your boat up and down it. You've got the festival centre, which in itself has played a major part in this race in the past. And of course, you've got Sir Donald Bradman, who always sits very proudly outside this immensely renovated oval here.
Oh, it's a magical backdrop to have to finish off a great week of racing that we witnessed here. But, you know, I also think that the finishing straight is a magnificent finishing straight for the sprinters. You come into it flat out, and when we were talking to those guys just a little bit earlier, we're talking at speeds of 75 kilometres an hour when they hit the finishing line, and it's always exciting, it's always dramatic.
Oh, and people will be roaring as they head up the final straight. But let's have a look at this track map to give everyone a closer indication of how it's all done.
Well, this is it, stage 6, the end of the road for everybody. Still 132 riders facing the start line. We've lost only one rider this week. As always, we're in downtown Adelaide and we're on the circuit. We've come home, Paul. Take us round it.
Yeah, well, the circuit is only 4.5 kilometres round. The riders do it 20 times. That's where the start is, in King William Road. They go down there, they go charging down, and then up Montefiore Hill. Now, 2 times up Montefiore Hill, there will be points for the King of the Mountains competition. And as I said, 20 laps, and they come straight up towards the finishing line, and it's slightly uphill towards the finishing line in King William Road. So if you make a mistake and start your sprint too early, you could find yourself getting overtaken.
Okay, some very interesting elements today. We've got Caleb, we've got Richie, but we've got the points for the sprint. We've got
battle.
the King of the Mountain.
And the King of the Mountain, which is sponsored by Subaru. It's been a great battle between 2 men so far. Richie Porte picking them up by default, winning both the mountaintop stages, really. But DeGent really attacking, and they're locked together, 32 points apiece. Today it'll be decided on Montefiore Hill.
Yes, and I just have a feeling, let's not forget, Richie Porte is trying to win this race for the first time in his career. He really does want to walk away with the Oka jersey, so he's not going to take any risks out on the course. Thomas DeGent, on the other hand, he does need to take the risks, and he'll be going out fighting to try and get himself those points on the Montefiore climb.
Well, boys, it's been a wonderful week. It really has. We've got a little bit to do, but can I say right now, thank you. It's been great being with you.
Thanks, Tim. It's been a great race this year. It really has.
I'm looking forward to the commentary as well, because it's going to be a real rip-roarer down towards the finishing line.
I bet you're looking forward to the air conditioning as well. So I'll let you guys go off to commentary. Now, a guy that actually has been very good on this circuit himself, a brilliant sprinter, one of our greatest, Robbie McEwen. Here's his preview.
Stage 6 of the Santos Tour Down Under, 20 laps of a 4.5 kilometre circuit here in the heart of Adelaide. The start-finish line is going to be the scene of multiple battles today. There are time bonus sprints on the line. The GC could shuffle between 2nd and 4th places in the matter of 2 sprints. The course is not without its dangers. The sharp left-hand bend from King William Road into War Memorial Drive seems to catch someone out every year.
They were looking a bit nervous, I felt there, Robbie. Everybody was twitching.
Montefiore Hill is the site of the final Subaru King of the Mountain sprints. The points will be decisive to see who pulls on that polka dot jersey. It could also be the launch pad for a late surprise attack to try and foil the sprinters. The riders dive down to here, the final corner, 600 metres to go. The sprinters getting lined up for their big battle. The lead-out men, they are at full tilt. This is the last chance to improve your position.
Now they're opening up full bore.
And now to the final sprint. This last 200 metres dragging uphill to the finish line. 2.5–3% gradient. You go from 200, it feels like 250. Who's going to get it right? Will it be Caleb Ewan for number 4?
There it is, the beautiful city of Adelaide on a sparkling day. It is the Sunday, the final day of the Santos Tour Down Under for 2017. The Be Safe, Be Seen Stage 6. And it's a wild sprint, so what a beautiful cue to get Australia's best ever female cycling sprinter, Anna Mears. And how are you, Anna?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me on this Stage 6 Be Safe, Be Seen day.
Yes, and we'll talk about that in a tick, because you are an ambassador for the Motor Accident Commission here in South Australia. But what about being an ambassador? You do love it, don't you?
I do love it. I mean, for me, this year's been a very different role. I've been able to enjoy the Tour Down Under without worrying about training and preparing for nationals and the World Championships and all that sort of thing. So I've been actually able to enjoy the Tour from the outside a little bit more than I have in the past. And it's a wonderful festival of cycling. All the activities around the race have been fantastic. And I'm addicted a little bit more.
That's a good thing. You even did the Booper Challenge. Well, we've got the final stage of the men's today, but we've watched the women's tour grow beautifully, haven't we? And it's done it quickly. 2016 through to 2017, as we look at some of the pictures here.
Yeah.
Of course, and Amanda Spratt.
Fantastic input to Amanda Spratt from Orica Scott team. And like you said, it's grown so quickly. This is the 3rd year they've run a women's race. It's the 2nd year that it's been UCI ranked. We had 17 teams here this year, which is the largest number of women starting, 11 international, 6 domestic teams, and the turnout in support of the women's racing was as good as the men's. And we need to get that support on the ground to continue to grow the women's Santos Tour. And look, the men's tour started with a few thousand on the sidelines, and I can only imagine where the women's is going to go in comparison as well.
Yeah, they've done really, really well here in 2017. Now, Anna, since we last spoke here in this position, you've retired and you've got the full set of Olympic medals. It was a brilliant bronze in Rio to wrap up what was an amazing career.
Thank you. Yeah, I had an incredible career. It was a tough decision to call the time on the retirement, but you know, I have achieved a lot and I have done a lot of things, but I've had the support of incredible people, particularly family, and I spoke about that at the Legends Dinner last night. The role of my parents driving me 600 kilometres round trip, and hi to Mum and Dad, they're watching this broadcast at the moment, and you know, the tough challenges I face with my sister Kerry as well, a Commonwealth champion too. So for me, much as I love being involved in this sport, I'm a fan of this sport and the Women's Santos Tour Down Under, as we just see footage of Kirsten Wild taking out the last stage win at Vic Park. You know, it's just, I'm a huge fan of it and it's wonderful to see.
Well, as we come off that footage and look down this straight, it's that is just going to be a mad sprint down there, isn't it? Straight down there. Caleb Ewan, will he do it again? This little pocket rocket.
The pocket rocket, yeah. Look, he's been earmarked ever since he's been a young teenager, and it was a real talent for the future. This stage does suit Peter Sagan. It's a little bit uphill, but I'm not sure that he's got quite the legs to match our little pocket rocket, Caleb Ewan.
All right, finally, very quickly, Mac, be safe, be seen, a really important message. You're an ambassador for them.
Proud ambassador, really important message, and a great campaign too, both for cyclists and motorists, about how to be safe and be seen on the road. Wear light, bright clothing, wear your lights flashing in the day and night when you're on the road on your bike. And for motorists, the big message is to be alert and look for cyclists. We occupy different areas of the road and we can travel at different speeds than what you were expecting. So everyone needs to look after each other out there so we can all come home safe to our loved ones.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the busiest men on our team. I'll talk to you very soon, Anna, anyway. Great to have Anna Mears as part of our coverage. One of the busy men of our team is another sprinter. His name is Robbie McEwen. We've had him working all day. Here's Rob.
Here on the start line of the final stage with Richie Porte. Richie, the buffer is huge in terms of the Tour Down Under's history. This jersey is safe on your back, but still a bit to negotiate.
Yeah, look, it's not an easy stage. You got to get through it and I mean, keep it up. But I think the hard work's done now. It's just kind of keep safe, and you know, I think it's going to be a bit of a exciting finish there between 2nd to 4th on GC.
Peter, you've had a pretty good week this week. You've run 2nd, you've run 3rd, still looking for that win, but there's other jobs today as well for your team.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's race is almost in the finish, and we still can take the podium. Then we have to try our best with the guys, with the team, to try to make some seconds with Jay, and then we will see also his last stage. Then we're gonna try also some lead out for me to catch one stage, really.
We've seen in the past that this race comes down to seconds, and grabbed some earlier in the week, but it wasn't enough to get the podium after the Wollonga stage, so it'll come to the last stage, and we're going for the intermediates, but I think there's going to be a few teams doing the same thing. We're so tight. Richie's probably a little bit too far ahead with the bonus seconds, but from 2nd through to around 7th, I think everyone's very close and they can jump up 1 or 2. So for us, we'll look at the intermediate sprints and then see how we go.
Yeah, you know, I've gone well in the past few days, so I'm going into the stage with a fair bit of confidence, but you know, also I know, you know, a lot of stuff can go wrong pretty easily in a sprint, and you do have to have a bit of luck on your side as well, so I'm just hoping everything goes to plan for me today.
So it's not going to be exactly straightforward, just let your team ride on the front, because there's so much going on between other GC contenders and podium contenders. Mountains competition, you're co-leading that with De Gent, bro. I guess you're happy to see him try and go out and get it?
Yeah, I mean, look, if he wants the jersey, it's his, really. I mean, the big goal is to defend the leader's jersey, so you know it is going to be nice to be able to sit back and watch those other guys. I think it'll be an exciting last stage.
Well, there it is. That's what they have to say, the stars of the show here. And it really just highlights, Anna, as we heard them, how good and how much we punch above our weight in the world of cycling.
Absolutely, and I think the training facilities here in Australia are really second to none, and the weather, particularly at the start of the road season for the men, as we see the Europeans come out here and experience the Santos Tour Down Under, they're starting to realise how important it is for kick-starting their season. And, you know, Richie Porte, I think, barring any incidents, is near undefeatable today. 9 years in the making for him, and you know, I think it's going to be a great race.
We saw a lot of the children cycling earlier, and I think the message that you just mentioned before about your mum and dad, because Mr. and Mrs. Mears, hello from the Santos Tour Down Under, they used to take Anna a 600k round trip every single weekend from 11 years of age to be the elite athlete that you were and are today. Thanks, Anna. We'll catch up with you very, very soon.
Pleasure.
Anna Mears, Santos Tour Down Under. Let's get racing with the boys, Phil and Paul.
As we look down now, the line of cars for the last time. Paul showing alongside me here. Paul, this is amazing. We started with 133 riders. If Johan Le Bon had not fallen off, we'd have brought 133 to this last day.
I think you'd have to look a long way back through the statistics to find out a racer that's gone through 6 days of racing and only had one rider drop out. There's Thomas de Gent riding quickly away there, followed by the Oka Jersey. And I still think that Richie Porte will have to be quite attentive on a race like this, because these city downtown circuits, Phil, are quite tortuous, and of course there's always a danger around every corner.
Absolutely right, and straight away Astana have gone out on the attack. This is the team from Kazakhstan, Astana being the capital country and the sponsor of this squad. There's a lot of things can happen here. Richie Porte's just got to keep sensible, don't panic, and he should win the race. But if you're fighting for second, third or fourth, you've got to watch out for the sprints, and the King of the Mountains as well is also under contention, because we expect to see Thomas de Gent try to break the deadlock between himself and Richie Porte, and it's got to happen on the Montefiore climb.
Yes, and it's also it's quite complicated because there's a lot of things, as you say, Phil, going on, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Richie Porte taking a little bit of a back seat on the race for the King of the Mountains competition. In fact, he pretty much indicated that to us before the start, that he has only got one goal from this race, and that's to win the bike race overall. If you try to be too greedy and go for too many things, then that's when you make errors.
Across the tram tracks, this is right up in Victoria Square now, and just to the right of our picture is the Hilton Hotel, where the riders have enjoyed some 10 days of hospitality there. So they haven't got far to go home tonight, and tomorrow, of course, they'll be flying all points around the world. Breakaway trying to establish high speed. There'll be a number of tactics here by the various teams to try and maneuver, shall we say, the wrong riders into the lead, to take the bonuses and protect the situation overall as it now stands. Or will those sprinters like Nathan Haas, Jay McCarthy, try to snick a 3-second time bonus that would move them up in the overall classification to a podium spot? Terrific crowd, and we had a terrific crowd yesterday as well. Blue skies, but there's a little cloud coming in now, and no concern for the race. The race will be done inside 2 hours, but there might be rain later this evening.
Well, it always cracks me up, Phil, when people talk about the final day of a race being a procession. It certainly is not a procession. You can see by the speed these guys have come out of the starting gate here, the race is fully on, and they've got to race really hard to try and keep it together, the guys who want to try and get onto the podium, if they want to fight out for the bonus seconds out on the course, because the first sprint point is actually after the 8th lap, so 36 kilometers into the event.
Yeah, it's intriguing to see if they can control the speed here. That's the River Torrens. A good look at the cricket oval here. This is a magnificent stadium now. It's been completely refurbished. Major operation. Cost over 200 million Australian dollars to put into the magnificent stadium it is now. 300, I beg your pardon, $300 million. Still on lap number 1, 20 circuits, remember. at last, Richie Porte, after 2 attempts and narrowly being beaten into second place, seems to have done it all right. There's no doubt, to this point in the bike race, Richie Porte has been the best cyclist in it. And amazingly, Paul, of the 5 stages we've had, only 2 riders have won stages.
And that might remain the same way at the end of today's stage, because I have to admit that Caleb Ewan, the way he's sprinting at the moment, he really is the outright favourite to take out this stage. But the guys that are up against him, they've seen the way he's sprinting now. They will know how he's going to perform in the last couple of 100 metres, and they will try and maybe provoke a mistake in the sprint.
2 riders trying to get off the front there. This is Montefiore Hill. This is going to be the contested point for the Subaru King of the Mountains at lap 10 and lap 15. I don't think Richie Porte will go for them, but I expect Thomas de Gent to try and snatch even 1 point. Could be enough to give him the Subaru King of the Mountains title.
Well, that is actually the important thing, Phil. There are only points for the first 3 riders on this 3rd category climb. 10th lap is the first time the riders go for that King of the Mountains points, and Richie Porte, if they go in on the same points to the final, he will actually win the Subaru King of the Mountains competition. So Thomas de Gent actually does have to get himself a single point on one of these ascents of Montefiore. The first one, as I said, on lap 10, the last one on lap 15.
And that's because in theory, well, not in theory, in practice, Richie Porte has won more of the category 1 climbs than Thomas de Gent. So he's got to break the deadlock by getting points, and it's got to happen on these 2 climbs. Get a sense of speed from this shot here. Feel the wind almost going outside the commentary box just now. It's a beautiful day, magnificent. There's Simon Gerrans in the light dark blue there. 4 times a winner. Thomas de Gent has gone.
I was going to say, you won't believe me, I just heard the number crackle on race radio. Thomas de Gent, he's made that move. He's an incredible bike rider. This is an awful long way to go to try and get himself a single point in the King of the Mountains competition, and I'm a bit surprised that he's actually gone quite so early.
Well, he's gone a long way out. If he gets it, though, he could be the outright winner of the King of the Mountains. Wow, the race is really on. Looking down to the central business district here of Adelaide, this beautiful city that's fallen in love with big-time cycle racing over the last 19 years. Huge celebrations being planned next year for the 20th year of the Santos Tour Down Under. The fear back in 1999 was that professionals wouldn't come here. It's too hot in Australia, and it's 20,000 kilometres travel for most cyclists around the world. But they came, they loved what they saw, and now they can't stay away. Thomas de Gent is the rider behind here. Gianluca Brambilla from Quickstep, the Italian, who's had his good moments in this race. Hasn't worked out for him, but he's a good man to have in a move, that's for sure. Down the back straight, Brambilla really giving it some pressure here. Remember, they've got to hold this break for 10 laps in order that de Gent can get some points. You've got to admire de Gent, the way he does this, because he always breaks clear a long way from his target. He did it yesterday, and he survived to the top of the first climb of Wollonga Hill, so he kept a real challenger in this King of the Mountains competition.
But he's also pretty clever, Phil, because he realises that on the way there is a sprint for on lap 8 for the bonus seconds, so he knows that there's a number of teams would be quite happy to have a breakaway form in the early part of this race, because that takes away the chances of getting the first and second place. It'd be a lot better, I think, for the guys vying for the podium to pull these 2 back. It depends on whether or not they want to put enough energy into the chase so early on into the stage.
Well, this Belgian rider here on the front is really driving, but they're on him. This is down King William Road, racing down towards the finishing line again. This will be on lap 2. Number 182 there is Callum Scottson, the younger brother of Miles Scottson, who's on the winning BMC squad at the moment with Richie Porte. And I'll tell you what, the Callum Scottson's part of Uni SA, and they are still winning the team race. after that tough day yesterday. Great result for UniSA. It's an amateur team compared to the World Tour riders.
Yeah, when you put it into perspective, Phil, they're up against teams that have got $15 to $25 million budgets. And in fact, not only did they keep their lead in the overall competition for the team race yesterday, they actually extended their advantage. And that competition is taken on the time of the best 3 riders on every individual stage.
Well, with the heat of the day, I'm sure the River Torrens looks rather nice at the moment. Looks like a road to nowhere down there. I hope those guys know they're going to stop. Nice good tandem this, Brambilla is going to be a good workhorse on quick-step floors with Thomas de Gent, an Italian on a Belgian team, and a Belgian in the polka dot leader's jersey. 10 seconds, the gap now. We're on lap 2 of 20. He's got to survive to lap 10 of 20. And on Montefiore Hill is where the sprint will be contested for the points. Home to 1.2 million people, Adelaide is on Lonely Planet's top 5 regions to visit in 2017. Founded in 1836 by Colonel Light, his plan for a beautiful city surrounded by parklands has evolved to see elegant 19th century sandstone architecture stand opposite edgy bohemian laneways. It's also surrounded by some of the most accessible wine country any capital has to offer, and is lined to the west by exquisite white sandy beaches, perfectly positioned to watch the evening sun set. It's a while before the sun sets on the Santos Tour Down Under, approximately 1 hour and 50 minutes, but we're underway. The 6th day of racing here, over 800 kilometres passing under the wheels in this opening World Tour event Down Under. And the man has been one of the animators throughout the week of racing. Thomas de Gent of Belgium still has not sewn up the Subaru King of the Mountains competition, and that's why he's gone early in the hope he can survive half of the race distance away from the field. That's a tough call.
Well, there's the standings, Phil. Look at that, locked together. Port and de Gent on 32 points. Esteban Chavez tried to move up there the other day, and he's got 22 points. Jack Bauer in 4th place with 16, and Jeremy Maison 14. As far as I'm concerned, there are only 2 guys can win this, and Thomas de Gent has got to have the serious option on possibly doing that.
It's the Bora Hansgrohe team who are prepared to drive at the front there, and the pace setter just now is Gregor Mühlberger, the Austrian, on the team.
Well, the reason for the Bora Hansgrohe team coming to the front is because they've got Jay McCarthy in 4th position overall. He's only 3 seconds off the podium. And isn't it funny that 12 months ago, Phil, he finished in 4th place overall, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to be 4th again this year.
He stayed 4th today. Riders leaped over him and moved up the overall. Chavez went from 3rd to 2nd, and Nathan Haas come in at 3rd, but still staying in 4th place was Jay McCarthy. But he only needs a couple of seconds, 3 in fact, and he'd move up onto the podium for the finish. And for that reason, I can't see these 2 riders staying clear.
Which is why it surprises me that Thomas de Gent decided to make that move. Obviously, Bora Hansgrohe doing a lot of pacemaking. I noticed Jay McCarthy was on the wheel of Peter Sagan, and that's what Peter Sagan explained to us before the start of this race, that he wanted to help his teammate to get onto the podium. But right on his wheel, it was also Mark Renshaw and Nathan Haas. Haas did a phenomenal ride yesterday to climb himself up into 3rd place in the overall standings, and he too is only 3 seconds off 2nd place overall.
Well, of course, there is a single second available for the 3rd place sprint, and even if it came down to 2 clear, these 2 teams Paul has mentioned of Haas and McCarthy will go head to head, and they're both very fast finishers, so it could be an exciting sprint if that's what it's going to come down to. 18 seconds at the moment. Team BMC looking after their team. The powerhouse of yesterday, Francisco Ventoso, is still at the front of the boys in red. We're watching the boys in black here, the Bora Hansgrohe team. Look at the average speed already, Paul, 46.55 kilometres an hour for 4.5 kilometre laps with bends as tight as this. And I think the whole of Adelaide's turned out to watch these riders.
Well, it's a serious advantage, Phil, because I'm getting over race radio, the gap extending to 22 seconds, despite the fact that it's well organised at the front of the main field.
Yes, there's confirmation of that. This is the relaxed position of the Italian, Gianluca Brambilla.
He's not a bad rider himself, though. He won 2 stages in Grand Tours last year. He won a stage in the Giro d'Italia and a stage in the Vuelta a España. Although he's been a professional for quite some time, he turned professional back in 2010. If my memory serves me right, he used to be quite a fiery character, because in fact he was disqualified from the Vuelta a España back in 2014 for a bit of fisticuffs just after the finish.
Yes, they don't tolerate boxing in cycle racing, that's for sure. Even if it is a 3-week race, the penalty is disqualification.
Yeah, he was fighting with the Russian rider Ivan Rovny.
Oh boy, that's not fair. We have to commentate, they have to ride, and these people in the VIP sector are having a great day out as they bring the Santos Tour Down Under to a close.
It really is a magnificent oval when you look down there, and it's not just used for cricket nowadays, it's used for multiple sports, and including great Aussie rules. That's one of the major reasons why they decided to upgrade the stadium. It seats around about 50,000 people.
It's a magnificent stadium, and we were lucky enough, we went in there last year and watched one of the big bash cricket matches, which are extremely popular here. Just coming up to a quarter now of racing. Good tempo riding, but they haven't brought the riders back yet. We're on lap 3 of 20. On lap 8, which is the end of lap 8, they will sprint for time bonuses. Can't catch Richie Porte, but they can alter the order of fire in the immediate podium behind.
Richie Porte sitting there in 5th position in that ochre jersey. And I just keep coming back to the same point, Phil. It seems to me how amazingly confident he's been since the start of this race. In fact, he spent a bit of time training in the United Kingdom over the winter period, and the weather was so cold. In fact, he spent most of that time training on a turbo trainer indoors. But certainly it didn't take the spark off his legs when he came to present himself to the start of the Santos Tour Down Under.
No, he's got himself in terrific shape. He's head and shoulders above the rest of the race on the climbs. He showed it at Paracombe on Wednesday. He showed it again in Wollonga yesterday, Saturday. Now he knows he's done enough. If he can maintain this overall lead, then he will finish up with the 2nd biggest ever winning margin. And that's 48 seconds. Biggest margin is 1:13. This is the sprint point in the mountains, which will come on laps 10 and 15. Montefiore Hill, sharp right over the top.
They've actually changed this circuit over the last couple of years as well, because once they come to the top of Montefiore, instead of going a little bit further over, they take a right-hand turn and drop down into the finishing line. And I think it makes a much faster finish, because you drop down to around about 350 meters to go to the finishing line, and then it kicks up, and it's a long drag of around about 3.5 to 4% gradient, and you've got to be very, very careful how you judge that sprint. There's Cam Meyer, number 181, former winner of this race, and of course one of the riders who's been, if you like, the captain on the road for Team Uni SA, who will lead this race in the team classification after extending their lead yesterday.
Well, Cam Meyer, 181 there, won this tour back in 2011, so he knows what it's like to carry the ochre jersey on the final day. This is Thomas de Gent with the very experienced Brambilla, turned pro back in 2010, but he's packed in 8 major tours. They call them the Grand Tours of France, Italy and Spain. So he's very experienced. He knows exactly what he's doing here. He's basically been with the same team makeup to various names since 2013. There he is on the front.
And Thomas de Gent also, he's been a professional since 2009, but it just accentuates the point a little bit how it's important to have development squads in different countries, because he came up through the school of Top Sport Vlaanderen, which is a team that was put together by the Belgian government to encourage and promote professional cycling. He was on that squad for a couple of years before he moved across to Vacances Soleil, and that's where we saw him participate in the Tour de France for the first time.
18 seconds locked in just now, down King William Road again towards the far turn, while the peloton are going through the backside of the finishing straight. crossing North Terrace and into continuing along rather King William Road. Average speed is moving up 46 plus now.
Pretty much locked in. Habitually throughout the past, this race has always been clocked off just inside of 2 hours of racing, so giving us normally an average speed of around about 45 kilometers an hour for the 2 hours of racing.
Good sign for the breakaway, because take a look at that peloton, Paul. They seem to have lost their impetus just for the moment. They pull back a bit. Should see that clock accelerate.
Well, you have to figure out, Phil, that obviously Orica Scott are not going to do any pacemaking at all, because as far as they're concerned, with Esteban Chavez sitting in second place, they're quite happy to have a breakaway. Dimension data, I think, currently with Nathan Haas in third place, well, they're just hovering and waiting to see who else is going to do any pacemaking, and it really then all lies on the shoulders of Bora Hansgrohe to try and pull that break back. So you've only got one team really concerned about pulling back that breakaway group.
Yeah, you're right. Turn down the top. Racing for nearly 20 minutes now. Gap holding at 18 seconds. I think it might open up a little bit here. The workman-like, he must be tired from yesterday, Thomas Agent. He led for virtually all the race until the last 22 kilometers of it. Less, the last 5 kilometers of it. And here he is at it again. Richie Porte, he must feel great just now. He's riding behind his faithful teammate there, Ventoso, the former champion of Spain back in 2012. And they'll look after him. All of his team are around him. He's the queen bee for sure.
Well, advantage for the moment goes to Thomas de Kent and Bramville in their breakaway group, because that gap is just about tickling 30 seconds, so that makes it around about a 500-meter advantage. Richie Porte, well, he'll be ticking off these laps as he goes around here, but I think that was probably one of the best performances I've seen him put in over the last 4 years at the top of Wollonga Hill, and he spoke to me just after the finish, Phil, last night, and said that that was definitely the hardest time, the hardest way he'd ever ridden up that climb.
It's now saying 30-second call. Yes, you're absolutely right. He's been the first Australian to do a lot of things, and I know that the people of Tasmania are enjoying this, because he's always promised so much. He comes from Tasmania and still very much has his roots there, but he's been the first Australian to wear the white jersey in the Giro d'Italia, which is for the best youngcomer in that event. He won that. He also won the Paris-Nice stage race, which is called the Race to the Sun, from Paris down to Nice in the month of March. It starts in the cold and it finishes in the lovely warm spring sunshine. And he's won that as well. Only he was the first Australian. Now he's looking to do this one. He's never won this one. As we circumnavigate around the beautiful River Torrens. See the cycle path and walkway on the side of it. Half a minute. Well, they've added on 22 seconds, I think it is. No, 12 seconds on this ride. Since they went through with 18 seconds advantage, we've now pushed it up to 30 on lap number 4.
There are only 2 riders sitting on the front from the Bora Hansgrohe team.
I could have flown over Montefiore Hill that time. It doesn't look much, but I'll tell you, it is quite a steep little climb. It's short and sharp, and they've climbing it 20 times today.
Yeah, the tough thing is you've got to bear in mind that it is uphill. It's around about a 5% gradient, but when you're riding up a 5% gradient at something like 44, 45 kilometers an hour, it really does start to bite into the legs. Nice to see Peter Sagan, the world champion, riding up towards the front, and he's doing everything he can to dish out some help for his teammates. As he said to us last night when we talked about it, he knows that he's going to ask his teammates to help him an awful lot more when we go further down this season.
Switching round the back, not too far away from the famous Adelaide Zoo as the riders pull away down towards the back of War Memorial Drive. Lap 4 of 20. We're heading towards the end of lap number 4. Their average speed is now 46.5 kilometers an hour. How long can those 2 riders keep this pace up? For in the case of De Gent, he needs to stay clear of this field for another 6 laps if he's going to win the King of the Mountains. Two leaders here completing a lap number 4 as we move off in towards the CBD of Adelaide. Peloton still making sure there's good rhythm by these boys. Let's see if they can pull them back.
Well, they're just being steady currently. They're keeping it locked in. I think as we get closer to the sprint point, that's when we'll start to see a more serious pace making being set by the Bora Hansgrohe team. And then they'll try and see whether or not they can get their rider across the line inside of the top 3. But you can also notice Nathan Haas is not too far away either. He's the rider. He did a brilliant ride on Wollonga Hill yesterday, Phil, because he initially got left behind. But because he's an experienced professional bike rider, I think he started to feel that he was getting towards his limit and he didn't want to pop or explode, as they say in cycling. What he wanted to do was then get into his own rhythm. He did that and he rode back into the race and moved up into 3rd place in the overall standings.
Great ride by Nathan Haas, same place as he got in the Australian Championships a couple of weeks ago in Bunnyong in the state of Victoria. And he was very unhappy with 3rd place. He really thought he should have won the event. So you've got to admire a man with ambition like that. So I suspect he's probably unhappy with 3rd in this race right now.
Well, I think he is. He's only 3 seconds off 2nd place overall, and he is a very rapid sprinter. He's the kind of guy that even if he didn't get bonuses in the first 2 bonus sprint points out on the course, he could still manage to nip into the top 3 on the stage when it comes down to sprinting, because he is a reasonably fast finisher. And he's got a guy like Mark Renshaw up alongside him, a lead-out man from Mark Cavendish, who could really put him into the right position towards the end of this race.
Just on the hill there, you just see the 2 leaders as they start the descent down towards the back of the finishing straight, down the grandstand.
I was just going to say, Phil, I spotted number 16, Jay McCarthy, locked onto the wheel of Peter Sagan. Imagine that, youngster Jay McCarthy. Yeah. He also raced together with him last year on the Tinkoff squad, so he will have a good relationship with Sagan. And just imagine that as a young rider, having the world champion pacing you through the main field and leading you out for a bonus point.
Huge. It's all about teamwork. If your form isn't good enough, then help somebody who has got good form. Brambilla of Italy and the Belgian Quick-Step team, and the Ghent is the other rider here in this breakaway.
Just looking at the images here, Phil, you can almost see the speed there as these riders go down the far side of the course. As they come up King William Road on the finishing side of the race, it's slightly uphill, but on the far side they drop down as they come around this big sweeper in the shadows of the Adelaide Open, and down that side of the course they're probably touching pretty close to 50-55 kilometers an hour.
These 2 are totally committed now. Brambilla is just out for the ride. He's got nothing to gain by this attack, but he's a very strong bike rider. De Ghent, of course, wants those points on top of Montefiore Hill. Anything might do it for him. Break the deadlock between himself and Richie Porte.
Welcome back to the Santos Tour Down Under. Johnny Stephenson. Oh, the kids at play today. He's a big kid at heart as well, isn't he? As they were riding the circuit that our professionals are riding right at the moment. And Johnny Steph, how are you, my friend?
Timmy, it's always a pleasure. And it's quite sad that the tour comes and goes so fast because you have so much fun. And I hope I was able to portray that and showcase that throughout the week with a fan cam. And it's been extraordinary because it's not just about cycling, as I've been showing. It's the festival that Adelaide brings with the Santos Tour Down Under.
Let's have a look at a few of the pictures because you have done a good job. And look,
thanks, mate.
You've done a really good job. You've got amongst it, my friend.
Scully, the veteran bikie in Lindok, and yeah, it's just been look, even here for Family Day, it was just really cool being out there, which has never really been done for last fan cam last year, and now I'm in my undies, and it was just wild, Tim. Like, I never thought I'd do half the things I did this year, but like again it shows what the Santos Tour Down Under brings to Adelaide. It's not just about the professionals riding around the streets of South Australia. So yeah,
I really enjoyed you watching with riding along with Phil Liggett, and you got on the big hills yourself and had a real crack after that first year where you could hardly move your arm when you see
Paracom there, that's Johnny Steph in the biggest gear, because my bike, actually the batteries are on the Di2 and flat. So you didn't mention that throughout the whole week. That's a big rap for me, Timmy. You should actually give me more props for my effort on Paracom. It's almost as good as Richie
Port's effort.
One of the reasons why I didn't mention it, because I knew you would at some point, and just give yourself a little bit of pat on the back. Look, the other thing is the festival. We always talk about the festival of cycling, and you have been the person that's been amongst it. You know, you've been on Wollonga Hill, as you say, you went into Lyndoch. You got to feel the vibe, and it's a good vibe, as Daryl Kerrigan would say.
And it is a great vibe, and you know, that's what I say. I keep reiterating this. It's hard. I said this to you. It's quite funny. We say we're coming down Adelaide to do some work for Channel 9, but really it's not. It's so enjoyable getting to meet the people, getting to see their perspective on the tour, not just the purists of cycling. You get to see what the people that are supporting the event with the festivals, with the Undies Run, in their communities, in their town, and what the Santos Tour Down Under brings for them.
I told you not to tell them. It's fun. We're working, John. We're working. All right, Johnny Steph. It was Dennis Denudo that said it, not Daryl Kerrigan in the castle that said it's the vibe, but it's a great vibe here. Santos Tour Down Under. We're racing right at the moment, so let's get back to commentary. Phil and Paul.
Two leaders going under the banner here, almost half an hour of racing, and it's about 20 seconds the gap. The clock is now counting down as they go out onto the big circuit again, onto lap number 6.
We're just waiting to see the banner across the finishing line. Race radio said it was 20 seconds, and I could have got confirmation if we'd seen the banner there. It's quite good. It's playing into the hands there, Phil, of Team BMC. They're just sitting there in the second row, just nursing their man Richie Porte around this course as they go through here, the hydration station. Important to keep yourself hydrated in a sport like this, with temperatures going today in excess of 30 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. It's absolutely a stunningly beautiful day today. Local people said to me earlier, watch out for the rain. You should be all right. It's expected early evening, but there is a little bit of a wind getting up. Might be bringing a storm in. Gap still 20 seconds. They actually went under that banner. The official gap was 21 seconds, and it was Postelberger and Mühlberger, the top two riders, riding for Abora Hansgrohe.
Well, 6 of 20 is the laps. If they can survive to lap 8, then I think we'll see a turning off in the pace at the front end of the peloton. Look at everybody going through here. This is what sort of precision it takes to take on board your drinks at in excess of 30 miles an hour.
I've often thought cyclists would make great cricketers, and they couldn't get a better place than riding up and down outside the famous Oval Cricket Ground. Just some fine examples of the incredible shots the cameras can bring you these days, both from the helicopter and from the motorbikes, and of course from those static cameras on the ground. Behind is the village there, where the riders, mechanics and the masseurs all do the work every day. It's where all the people and the public are allowed as well. That's been a feature of this race for 20 years. People can go and watch what's going on with these top World Tour riders. There's Richie Porte.
Just behind him is Daniel Lovis. He was involved in that very nasty accident to Gorka Izagirre on the road down into Victor Harbour, but he went right over the top. He said, I had a soft landing. I actually landed on Jan Bakelants, and he said he hardly had a scratch on him, although there was a massive big scar made on the road by his BMC bicycle.
Yes, big skid mark. The crowd listening to the commentary on the circuit, of course. There's the world champion, Peter Sagan. He's tried to win a stage. He wants to win a stage, that's for sure, but he's had 2 second places so far, and the 3rd maybe today. Amazingly, no foreign rider has won a stage of this race now for 2 years, as we speed by and nearly blowing the grass out of the ground there. Wow, they're now saying that the gap is now descending rapidly and is down to just 15 seconds. We'll have a look at that. They're building up, you see, Paul, for lap number 8 and the big sprint. That's how important these time bonuses are.
But it's going to be a massive sprint, Phil, because it's not just the rider we're talking about, Jay McCarthy, but I'd also notice very present towards the front, the red jersey on the shoulders of Caleb Ewan. They also want to make sure that McCarthy and Haas don't get any time bonus sprints, because Esteban Chavez, I don't think, is going to get involved in the sprinting. He sits in second position at 48 seconds. 3 seconds behind him, you've got Haas, and 6 seconds behind him, you've got Jay McCarthy. So Caleb Ewan, if it does come back together for the sprint, he will get involved in the mix. It'll almost be like a dress rehearsal for the final sprint of the day.
Who would have thought after over 800 kilometres of racing we're talking about riders snicking a second or so to win this, to finish second or third in this race, or in the case of the man in the blue spotted jersey, just a single point on a mountain to make sure he wins that. He's wearing the jersey at this point on loan from Richie Porte, obviously Richie Porte in the ochre jersey. 15 seconds the gap, so it's been on the descendancy here. Lap number 6 of 20. Past the beautiful city of Church. I think that's St. Peter's Cathedral down there.
Well, in the late 1800s, Adelaide earned its nickname, the City of Churches, because of the prominence of churches in this area. A very Catholic city, by the way, with the Catholicism having the highest percentage of the religious orders in this pretty progressive city.
He's catching 181 there, so Cam Meyer has got back after his second mechanical. He's having a real busy morning. He's only been racing just over half an hour. Under the banner on the Montefiore Hill, no points there till we climb it for a 10th time. And I'm not so sure that Thomas de Gent's going to get there at the front on that 10th time either, because they're slowly winding in that tandem. And the reason, of course, is that they want a straight sprint for the bonuses at 3, 2 and 1 second, just to see if Jay McCarthy can improve on his 4th and move into 3rd.
It's quite amazing when you think about this race and the history of the race, Phil, how so very often this final day, which I keep being told by people around the world, oh, it's just a procession the final day, but it's so very often on the final day, even with these intermediate sprint points, that either the victory of the race or the positions on the podium has been decided right down to the final sprint of the event.
Well, you know, Paul, back in 2012 and also in 2003, this race was won on countback of positions over the line, because 2 riders had exactly the same time. So it's always been known that in this particular race, seconds really do count. 35 minutes under the wheels, moving out onto lap number 7. They're averaging pretty quick lap times at the moment of around 5 minutes 55, 5 minutes 58 seconds was the last time. They've just gone through a little bit slower this time, might be significant. 6 minutes 50.
So average speed 43.6 kilometers an hour, which is about 27 miles an hour. There you can see Peter Sagan on the right hand side, right locked onto his wheel is Jay McCarthy. 16 seconds was the gap, the official gap on the finish line.
So they've never allowed those two really ahead. They can get out and catch them. Next time around will be the start of lap number 8. At the end of that lap will be the sprint for these time bonus seconds in the red jersey II net sprint.
Well, this is the tough thing for Thomas de Gent when we think about it, Phil, because he's made a big effort over the opening laps of this race, and I'm just wondering if he might have made a tactical mistake to go out to try and get this breakaway successful early on, because if he gets caught, I'm not sure whether he's going to have the firepower to get away and get the single point. He only needs a single point from either of the 2 King of the Mountain points today to win that competition outright.
That's right, and if he gets caught for this 8th lap sprint, the mountain sprint is lap number 10. Well, be safe. You see the big bike on the right. It's all about road safety today, this stage. And looking down there is where we have the village. That's where the team presentation was, under the screens there. A week yesterday, and packed with people. A magnificent crowd came out. And that's where I was telling you earlier about all the mechanics all doing their bike work down there. Plenty of space for them to do a good job too. Been lucky with the weather. We've had just one little bit of rain, nothing to talk about.
Well, the gap has just gone out to 20 seconds, so it looks as if the peloton might have slowed down. Maybe they're just judging the attack to perfection. You see the leading group, that's Gianluca Brambilla in 2nd position in the blue jersey, Thomas de Gent on the front in the polka dot jersey of the Subaru King of the Mountains leader. And he knows that if he goes through lap 8 still in the lead, the chase will actually slow out a little bit, but the main fill is stretched out into an extremely long line. A rider just sitting on the back there, the rider from UAE, that's one of the great sprinters who get in the mix towards the end, Ben Swift.
Yes, and that was Arishiro of Japan just in front of him. Well, the average speed's still around 46 for the race, so to attain such a speed, you'll be looking to about 55, 60 kilometres a year as they're gently downhill. And, of course, they're also putting on a show for the VIPs in the stands there. That's a lovely shot. You can feel the speed of the riders just now. Now, this gap has been so narrow for so long, they've allowed no vehicles, rightly so, in the gap. They are using a motorbike, carrying spare wheels for the 2 leading riders, but frankly, with a gap of 16-20 seconds, a flat tyre, you might get the wheel change done in time, but only in time to get back in the pack. Lap number 7. That's the road to nowhere. As we look at the Adelaide Oval, overlooking the River Torrens.
And that brand new bridge that they built in to cross over, the pedestrian bridge. And I didn't realise until this morning, walking down there, that towards the end there, in fact, was a magnificent waterfall fountain. And it's beautiful at night with the way that it's been lit up over the Torrens.
Good job they put a little barrier across the end of it, because the fun and games in town last night, everybody enjoying themselves. There'll be a few walks straight off that for sure. Sergio Henao, number 43, caught a glimpse of him. He's had bad luck on this race, but he tried to get in amongst it yesterday. He came up a little bit to 11th place overall, but he's out of it this year. He was on the podium a year ago in 3rd place. But now he's 1 minute and 6 seconds back, and that's far too much. There's Caleb Ewan in the red jersey. I wonder if he's going to have a little dig at the sprint just to stop anybody else getting the time bonus. That would be logical, wouldn't it, Paul?
Absolutely. Esteban Chavez moved up into 2nd place overall yesterday with a cracking ride, but he's not comfortable until this race is over, because he's only got a 3-second advantage over Nathan Haas and 6 seconds over Jay McCarthy. So if we do come down to the sprint, I'm pretty sure that Caleb Ewan will try and make sure that those other 2 riders don't get any time bonus seconds, or at least they finish behind Caleb Ewan.
Which means the most they could get is 2 or 1 second. Caleb grabbing the 3. Stop Nathan Haas, perhaps reaching Esteban Chavez in the overall 2nd place just now. These are the 2 leaders, still doing extremely well to hold off this peloton, but it is closing down now. They're timing this catch for lap number 8, and it's at the end of lap 8 we have this time bonus sprint. 7 seconds.
Well, this sprint, Phil, is going to be almost a
finish.
It will be just like a finish, because it is so important for 3 or 4 riders in this main field. And obviously, Bora Hansgrohe have done the best job so far, just maintaining that advantage. They'll want to try and make sure they catch these riders with enough time to get the lead out organised. And I will not be surprised at all to see Peter Sagan trying to lead out Jay McCarthy. He's got this burning ambition, the young Australian rider, to get himself onto the podium. He doesn't want to finish 4th as he did 12 months ago.
Well, Jay McCarthy's got the lead out firepower there, with not just Peter Sagan but also Sam Bennett. Put the 2 of those in front of Jay, they can launch him into orbit for sure. Out onto lap number 8 now. They're saying it is 13 seconds, the gap.
I don't think that's 13 seconds, Phil.
No, I don't think it is.
Because they're right on their wheels right now.
Well, officially it's 4 seconds, and Chris Hamilton leading the peloton through there. Another lap outside of 5 minutes, 6 minutes and 2 seconds. So they've slowed down slightly over these last few laps. And it's now all back together. So we're going to be treated at the end of this lap of a mass sprint. And it's all about 3 seconds. Now, for a week, we've watched these riders in breakaways totally ignore these sprints because they weren't interested. But today, the riders who are sitting in 2nd, 3rd and 4th overall in this race are spread by 6 seconds. And 6 seconds with a 3-second bonus could really make a big difference, because we have one more sprint to come. Crowd will be surprised to see they're all back together at this end of the course outside the Hilton Hotel, swinging right around the top. And there's the 2:15 chimes on the town hall here in Adelaide.
Look at Orica Scott on the right-hand side in the dark blue jerseys with the yellow helmets. They're looking over their shoulders. They want to make sure that I think they want to just take the points away from the bonus seconds away from anybody else. You've got Sunweb in the middle getting themselves involved as well. Jaco Venter, the South African national champion, in the white jersey. They're trying to look after Nathan Haas, and Haas is the one who I thought rode superbly yesterday to move up into third place. He's going to have to sprint, not only to defend his third position in the overall standings, but also maybe to try and get a little bit closer to Esteban Chavez. It's a mathematical nightmare, this final stage.
This is going to be as exciting, I think, as any of the finishes we've seen where Caleb Ewan has wiped them all out. And Caleb Ewan will go for this sprint because Chavez can't sprint. He's not a sprinter, he's a climber. He's in second place overall. He doesn't want the two rides behind to gain 3 seconds on him. So Caleb Ewan, it's on his shoulders to at least try for the 3 seconds and spoil the bonuses. And make the others have to rely on the second sprint of the day, which is on lap number 12. Down onto the banks of the Torrens again, snaking away past the Adelaide Oval. There it is. I don't know, many of our viewers around the world, Paul, will not know what Big Bash cricket is. It's simple, really. It's great cricket. It's really exciting. It's limited overs, and you simply hit the ball as far as you can, as quick as you can. And the crowd go because they love to catch the ball in the stands. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, when people complain about cricket being a slow game, if you ever get a chance to go and see a 2020 game, you get a whole game all and done and dusted in about 3 hours. And talk about excitement. It's a great way to promote the sport. At the moment, this is a great way to promote the sport as well, because these are guys who've been racing for more than 700 kilometers, and right now they're just fighting to get across the line in first position to grab themselves 3 seconds, 2 seconds or 1 second time bonus to hopefully change their positions vis-a-vis the podium.
I'm a little bit mystified by the Katusha tactics. They've moved up to the front. Their best placed rider is Restrepo, but I think he is the best young rider overall, so maybe they just want to try and keep him safe and stop anybody behind. Let me just have a look where the next best young rider is. That's Michael Storer. But Storer is it's a little bit too far behind for these bonuses to make any difference.
Look at the faces on these guys. They really, this is, although it's only a 90-kilometer stage, look at the speed. We're touching speeds almost 60 k's an hour going around that corner.
Well, this is the sprint lap. We're racing for 3 seconds time bonus after 800 plus kilometers of racing, and it could alter the podium at the finish. The move gone there by Daryl Impey. And look, Durbridge on the right. These boys are trying to stop anybody to get in on this sprint because they don't want their man Chavez to endanger the situation. Luke Durbridge it is, who's driving on the right-hand side. Now they're bringing Team Bora up here and Hansgrohe. If Jay can get this, and it's the lead out from the world champion to try and get in 3 seconds, it could move him up. And Caleb Ewan trying to get through to spoil the party. That is one terrific sprint. And you know what? I think Ewan has done it again against the world champion. But there was a guy on the inside, and we'll have to wait and see, because that was Jay McCarthy.
Well, for McCarthy there, Phil, I couldn't see from the angle that we saw, but I'm pretty convinced that he was in the top 3.
Paul, the computer says, now that's not, the computer says McCarthy has got the 3 seconds. Ewan has got 2. Peter Sagan has got 1. Now that will put McCarthy equal third in the race. He joins Nathan Haas. Just watch this.
That's the white jersey on the front of the world champion. And look at the way Peter Sagan slows down a fraction. Yes,
oh, yes,
definitely
no doubt.
On the line, there's no doubt about that at all. Ewan tried to take away a few seconds, but Jay McCarthy, he's moved up into equal third. And there's still a sprint to go.
One sprint to come. And quality sprinted by the youngster on this World Tour team.
And look at Peter Sagan in the middle. He was looking across and he was trying to judge whether or not he could finish in front of Caleb Ewan or not.
So a 3 second time bonus now places him 51 seconds off the overall lead, but more importantly, he's now equal third along with Nathan Haas as the race goes on. Well, it's a little while now before we get the next sprint. It's at the end of lap number 12. We're now out on lap number 9, but before that we've got on lap number 10 the climb of Montefiore Hill. And this is our favourite rider this week, Jack Bauer, for the last 2 days voted the most competitive rider. That's why he's got the red number on, and he's at it again.
But looking over his shoulders, he doesn't want to go on his own. He's made the acceleration almost immediately after that intermediate sprint point, and he's opened a gap up. But he realizes on a circuit like this, you need 2 or 3 riders if you're going to have any chance at all of surviving. But he's obviously indicated in this race for the Santos Tour Down Under this year that he's got great form coming off that National New Zealand Time Trial Championships.
He has indeed. As he said, though, he got hammered in the road race by Joe Cooper, who won the title, who's not riding this event. But Bauer's going again. He's looking for long-term form here. He's enjoyed his ride around. And the chases are on. And I'm just wondering if we're going to see, or hope to see, Thomas de Kent try and get out of that group. But after that long break he made, I'm not sure he can.
Well, I saw him riding the back end of the peloton, but he's a clever rider. He may well just wait to see what sort of flurries of attacks happen at the front end of the peloton and try and move up and snick a single point later on.
I'll tell you what, Paul, that last lap was just under 1 minute faster than the previous lap. That's how quick they lined up that sprint, and eventually it was won by Jay McCarthy on the Bora Hansgrohe team, and he's put him equal third in the race. It will go to countback, of course, to find which one. I haven't got time while we're commentating to work it out for you between Nathan Haas and Jay McCarthy, which one will actually take the third place podium. Little problem for the team now. This is Sam Bennett with his hand up, the same team as McCarthy. One more sprint to come. One more, 2 climbs to come. Now, are we going to break the deadlock between Thomas de Kent and the race leader, Richie Porte? Sagan trying to get away here into a little group. Are they going to let him maneuver away for a moment? That's Ventoso and Tiago Machado on the front there. Somebody else taking a flyer on Montefiore Hill. We've got about 1 hour and 4 minutes to go. He's showing signs of breaking up just at the moment. Riders are not going to take this next one to the sprint. They've seen what McCarthy can do now. Sagan looking over his shoulders, just checking everybody out.
Jack Bauer's doing the same. They made that acceleration, but they haven't got away from the main field.
What a wonderful Sunday afternoon here in Adelaide. There it is, the iconic Adelaide Oval, looking absolutely pretty as a picture, as is the city. We have thunderous crowds here, and we have tactics going left, right and centre. Even at the moment, Peter Sagan going out with that lead group to make sure they didn't get away. That's tactics at its very best, Rob. It's almost like a science lab today as we talk tactics.
Oh, there's so much going on. There's races within the race, and we've been watching that coverage of Bora riding so tactically for Jay McCarthy, and it's all about getting those bonus seconds. They're stacked in the classification, so right from the get-go, Team Bora, the team of Peter Sagan, but also of Jay McCarthy. Jay McCarthy's been nipping away at these bonus seconds all week, and they know if he can take them on this stage, he can jump right up on the general classification. And we've just seen the opening sprint, so this riding on the front was keeping everything together. And when it came down to that intermediate sprint, and this is an example of it, these are all non-sprinters trying to improve their GC. And we just saw Jay McCarthy grab 3 seconds, go into equal third.
And that's just part of the puzzle today.
that is only just a small part of the puzzle. Thomas de Gendt, he needs to get 1 point at the Subaru King of the Mountain competition to lock up that jersey to win it overall. He's in a deadlock with Richie Porte at the moment, so that's also going on. And of course, we've got the final sprint. There's still the stage win on the line. So many different things going on within this race. When we look at the final sprint, well, Caleb Ewan won here last year, and as he's demonstrated all week, head and shoulders above the rest, especially for such a little guy in the sprint. But Peter Sagan has said, I'm going to work for Jay, but then I'm going to do the sprint and I want to try and win, because the last international non-Australian winner of a stage of the Tour Down Under was right there, Walter Whippet, in 2015 on this stage. So will Ewan make it 4 from 6, or we get an international winner for a change?
Yeah, because when we talk tactics, we're not only talking just about this race as we look at the live pictures there, we're talking about UCI World Points and getting teams in the right places as we launch into a big 2017.
And that's why it's so cutthroat on this stage, and they've got to get it tactically just right, because there's a big difference in those World Tour points depending on where you finish on the overall classification. And you know, these Europeans have come a long way to be here in Australia. They want to get something out of it, and that's why we're going to see Thomas de Gendt give it everything. He tried to go in an early breakaway but got shut down. But fairly shortly, we're going to have the Subaru King of the Mountains sprint, and Thomas de Gendt, he's going to be going for it again.
Yeah, it's fast and furious. There's tactics going left, right and centre. Santos Tour Down Under, we're in our final stage. It's a ripper. Let's get back to commentary.
A workmanlike group, this, Paul. But no signs of Thomas de Gendt, and the points are halfway around this lap.
And it's very complicated, I have to tell you, because you've got so many different permutations going on. The reason that the Lotto Soudal have come to the front is because that is the team of Thomas de Gendt, and that's why now they're trying to nail back the breakaway group. Thomas de Gendt, all he needs to do, Phil, is finish inside of the top 3, so his team want to try and keep it as close together as possible. There, they've done it, they've done the job. Those are the riders in the red and white jerseys of Team Lotto Soudal. I'm just looking there as well, a little bit further back. You can see that white jersey just through the little bit of haze. Well, that is Thomas de Gendt placing himself into 10th or 12th position. All he's got to do, Phil, is get inside of the top 3 to get a single point and take himself ahead of Richie Porte, who leads that competition.
Lachlan Morton comes from Port Macquarie, but he races on the World Tour team now out of South Africa this year. He's ridden his bike right across Australia with his brother Angus, and now he's got really serious about his bike racing again after a great season last year, largely in the United States. Looks as though he's full of enthusiasm.
But it's all just come back together as they begin the final few hectometers for the approach up to Montefiore Hill.
Well, they're still managing to get off the front of this race despite the average speed of almost 50 kilometres an hour.
Look at this.
Adam Hansen, he's stirring it up now, the Queenslander.
And de Gendt right on his wheel.
Now, can they get across? Adam's going to give it his best shot. 1 point will do. Third placing. De Gendt chasing Adam Hansen, his teammate.
Well, they've got the gap. Hansen is on the front and he's pulled Thomas de Gendt away. They're on the slope, so they'll come around this corner. Look at that. Adam Hansen looks back to get confirmation. Thomas de Gendt, despite going in that early breakaway, Phil, he's going to grab himself 3 points here.
That's terrific. Well done. He deserves the title. He's been very aggressive. Let's see if he can get up there now. It's a long sprint up this hill. Doesn't look a lot from our helicopter, but it is a nasty. As he comes round towards the banner. Well done, Thomas de Gendt. You might be able to hear the round of applause around the circuit there. That's giving 3 points. That's giving the outright lead now. 35 points in the King of the Mountains competition.
I think the rider went across in 3rd place was Jack Bauer once again.
Bauer's also up in the King of the Mountains in 4th place, but he's not going to help him too much. 2 points for him.
BMC bringing a little bit of calm over the front end of the peloton once again, and they will just try and continue to steer Richie Porte around this course. I think it's a really interesting course here, because when you come up Montefiore on the final 2 laps, riders in the main field will really try and ride it as hard as possible to put the sprinters into a spot of bother.
So we have a clear leader now in the Subaru King of the Mountains as the race goes through its halfway point. Just watching here, this little group trying to establish itself here.
Well, they dragged themselves clearer just with the acceleration of going for the King of the Mountains.
The 8 against going again.
Yeah, Thomas again, once again says, OK, we've got a gap. And this is quite dangerous, actually, because when you see a large group of riders, it makes it much more difficult to chase back. But none of the riders in that leading split there are at all dangerous to the overall lead of Richie Porte. But still, that puts a bit of responsibility onto the shoulders of BMC Racing to nail it back.
They'll be monitoring who is in this breakaway. I'll give you the full lineup once we get the peloton through. We're out onto lap number 11 now, so we're into the second half of the race. Jack Bauer nears the camera. So going now up King William Road here.
The peloton has switched out across the road there, and it looks as if they've actually turned off the pacemaking. I think we'll see different teams begin to get organised a little later on, because I think in fact Bora Hansgrohe really want to pull it back together, because with another 3-second time bonus there's a big possibility that Jay McCarthy can pull himself up into second place overall, and that would be a coup.
It's the champion of South Africa giving a go now, Jaco Venter. He was a late replacement into the team as well, settling in nicely. That last laps, they haven't actually given us the result of the last lap, so the computer's gone a little bit awry just for the moment. Venter on the left of our picture. These 5-6 riders here trying to get clear. This looks like Ben O'Connor again on the front, giving another good shot. Remember, he was on that opening day in the People's Choice Classic. He was away at that time. Hey, now this is a nice little gap here. You never know when the combination is right and they start to move clear.
Yes, the difficult thing is once you start to get a larger group and they do become a cohesive unit, that's when it's harder to pull back. But the fact of the matter is there are so many guys looking for a sprint finish here this afternoon. We'll see a collaboration between all of the teams working together, all the teams who've got sprinters, and there are so many fast men in this race. Maybe not all of the great marquee sprinters of the world, but certainly some of the best in the second tier.
Located 600 kilometres north of Adelaide is the ruggedly spectacular Northern Flinders Ranges. The Santos Tour Down Under. The food and drink that accelerates here around the festivals in town of Adelaide and the circuits, as they always enjoy themselves here. We're looking down here now at the peloton, and they've just got themselves a little group away from the field, and included in this group is Ben O'Connor, the boy in black on the far right there, and also on the far left here Jaco Venter, and also in the group Johan Freudinger of Team Sunweb has joined the breakaway, just sitting on the back at the moment.
Well, this is a good attempt to try and break the stranglehold of the sprinters. Go immediately after that very hard ride that we had for that first intermediate sprint point, and the big attack for the King of the Mountains competition at the top of Montefiore Hill, because the main field was a little bit on the rivet there, on the limit of their advantages once they came up to that point, and that's the moment to go straight over the top. But there's a little acceleration here now starting to come from Team Katusha. Now, the rider in the white jersey, in fact, is the rider who's in the best position in the Best Young Rider competition, Jonathan Restrepo, the Colombian rider. So that is a rather interesting move from Katusha.
And they've got to keep an eye on him, because he wants to consolidate, obviously, his overall place as the best young rider in the race. He's not going to endanger the podium trio. They're a little bit too far ahead at the moment. But he's not just going away for him here, he's actually doing all of the work. Sven-Erik Byström is the other rider who's gone with him in the all-red strip.
But what he is interested in doing, Phil, is maybe getting clear and surviving to the next intermediate sprint point, because with a few seconds he could in fact get himself into the top 10 in the overall standings, and as a young developing professional bike rider, that's something that he would certainly like to try and do, and he's seen this as an opportunity to leap across to an established breakaway group of 6 riders.
Nice to see this rather workmanlike group getting clear. There's a list there. Ben O'Connor is at the back there, Jakob Fenter, Freuniger, number 32 in the race. Jack Bauer off to the right of our picture. Thomas Agent. This is a good, solid, workmanlike move here at the moment. Again, just falls down to the back of the race there. Two riders from Team Dimension Data at the moment.
That bell that's ringing there is an indicator to the riders to let them understand that next lap is going to be the sprint, the second sprint to a point for them, with 3 seconds, 2 seconds and 1 second time bonus available. Richie Porte going through, taking on board drinks.
Yes, and for that reason, Paul, we might still see a reaction from the field here to try and close it down for this last sprint.
Well, if Restrepo, Phil, who is actually quite a good sprinter, if he was to get across and into that group and get himself a 3-second time bonus, he would leapfrog inside of the top 10. And look at that, he's almost made the junction there, looking over his shoulder. In fact, he's gone so hard that he's dropped and left his teammate behind. That's Restrepo there, going around the corner in the white jersey. And there's his teammate, you can see a little bit further down. And Thomas de Kent has decided this is just a little bit too tough for him, so he's actually sat up and waited. His job has been done for the day. All he wanted to do was make sure that he got himself the points at the Subaru King of the Mountains. So look at the average speed now. It's started to get a little bit grippy out there in this race. 48.2 kilometers an hour.
That's quick, and I think I've just heard them announce that Thomas de Gent has been dropped from that front group at the moment. So he's lost ground. Okay, he's got the lead in the King of the Mountains, and if the combination stays that way, he'll win it. But obviously the pace, well, he's okay. Yes, he's definitely gone out of this group. We've only got 6 riders left.
Yeah, but there's been a changing of the guard at the front there, Phil, because Jonathan Restrepo came partway across the gap with his teammate. Then his teammate ran out of gas, and Restrepo has jumped across there. Now, we heard the bell for the next sprint point, where there's 3, 2 and 1 second time bonuses available. Now, if Restrepo gets that, he's going to, not only will he consolidate his position as the best young rider, but he will also nip inside of the top 10. And let's not forget, this is a Pro Tour event, and that's an important position for a young rider to improve his position and try and get inside of the top 10. More points available for him and the team.
Looking at the King of the Mountains elect now, Thomas Gent, left by the breakaway, replaced in the lead by Restrepo, as Paul has just told us. The peloton has certainly put the pressure on. Take a look at the back end of that bunch. There's a few guys hanging on down there right now as we head past the festival centre there. It's turning out to be a very, very aggressive ride as the riders try to pick up the final places in this year's Santos Tour Down Under.
Just getting picked up there by the main field is that's Sven Byström, who in fact his job was to get Restrepo part way across the gap, and then he just sat up and waited, and I'm pretty sure that's what Thomas Agent did. His race today was all about getting just a single point. Well, he's going to be quite happy with the fact that he's got 3 extra points in the Subaru King of the Mountains. This also takes a bit of pressure off, Phil, the other riders in the group, like Chavez and Nathan Haas and McCarthy, because there's no chance of them getting points at this point.
So they've got the strong riders of Team BSC. They're watching the race all around them reenact, and they're not countering the moves because they don't have to worry about them unless they start to gain real time over the field. Restrepo, best young rider in the race. Well, he needs well over a minute advantage and the 10-second win bonus to endanger Richie Porte. Very unlikely on this circuit.
No, but I think it's just a question of pride for him, Phil, to try and get himself inside of the top 10. If he gets the 3-second time bonus, he would leapfrog over the Australian rider Nathan Earl, who sits currently in 10th place for Team UniSA.
34 seconds, piling on the gap here now. And it's being left, it's a more regular appearance now when the teammates of the race leader have to drive the pace. And that's what they're doing. Strong horse in Ventoso has come back up here to the front. There's the situation overall at the moment. That 3-second bonus by McCarthy has put him into 3rd place. So on count back, he sits 3rd now. Nathan Haas in 4th. And it's a pity, but Nathan Haas is not in the breakaway when the sprint is coming up.
Yes, but Nathan Haas has got the ability to get himself inside of the top 3 at the end of the stage. He's a pretty handy finisher, Nathan Haas, and now that's all he's going to bank on. But with so many fast riders going for the victory at the end of the stage, it's going to be a very complicated and well-disputed sprint.
Sprint number 2 now. Restrepo looking who's going to come for it here. And he wants the 3 seconds. Obviously, it's going to mean a lot to him. And he's got a real kick in those legs too, the Katusha rider. And he's taken it. That'll move him up the overall classification into the top 10 of this race. And that's job done. Well done by the Colombian rider. You don't see many Colombians that can punch a good sprint finish like that.
Yeah, but he was very clever in the way he saw the opportunity present itself with that breakaway looking like it was going to survive, and he takes on board an extra drink there. And the funny thing is, Phil, I thought for a moment he was going to sit up and wait for the main fielder, because he's still got to make sure. Well, he is. Look at that. He went across that gap with the sole purpose of trying to get himself the 3-second time bonus. Thomas de Gent just on the far side. He's been picked up by the main field. Now look at this attack here coming from the rider from Sunweb. That's Frolinger trying to come forward to see whether or not he can spoil the party. But Restrepo had already opened up his sprint at that point, and that gave him the 3-second time bonus that he wanted.
Look at the determination on this young man's face. So the rest of the seconds bonuses didn't really matter with anybody. That was the big one for him. There's the Be Safe, Be Seen bicycle. It is huge. And it's where the race village is, and the Hilton Hotel is where all the riders stay. So they don't have far to go to check the bikes with the mechanics. And every day this is where they start from. And this is why this race is so popular. It's called a star race. Each day we go out to a different venue every day. Now it's down, as we're running out of time here, to make sure that that man there in the ochre jersey does not get himself into any trouble at all as he heads towards his first ever victory in this race.
Well, this is the rider who jumped across the gap. Was really, I think that was a very clever move. He saw the opportunity, jumped across the gap with his teammate, accelerated across the line to get himself the 3-second time bonus. He will have popped inside of the top 10 in the overall standings now, and he doesn't want to waste any more energy because he's still got to stay in contact with the main field to retain that position. So
clever riding.
Very clever. And also he's got the legs to do it.
These are the riders now who are still in the attack. They may not be hunted men just at the moment. The result of the sprint, Verstappen gets 5 points. More importantly for him, 3 seconds in the IINet sprint. Frolinger got 3 points and 2 seconds, and Jaku Venter got 2 points and 1 second.
Well, Frolinger made the move to try and come up and take the time bonuses away from Restrepo, because Restrepo now comes right in behind his team leader Wilco Kelderman in the overall standings. That's Frolinger sitting on the back there in the white and black jersey of Sunweb.
Good chance, you know. We haven't seen a breakaway succeed for many years on the circuit that I can recall. But this combination of riders, Paul, they've got strength, they've got no reason for the race leaders to chase them down. There's always a chance. Lap 13 of 20. Lap 15, the last climb of the hill. There's no King of the Mountains contenders here. So that would mean that de Gent would win the blue spotted jersey of Subaru at the end of this race. He's not going to chase.
Well, it's 55 seconds,
shooting up,
but it's going to have to go to a couple of minutes, Phil, if this breakaway is going to start to look dangerous. I just feel that there are so many strong teams that they won't allow this breakaway too much of an advantage, and I just get the feeling, having spoken to Peter Sagan over the last couple of days, that he and his team, they really want to get the victory under their belt if they can.
Working well together now as they continue to push this race on. Francois Bidard on the front just now. Over the top of Montefiore Hill, lap number 13. 2 more laps before that counts in the King of the Mountains. Bidard, it gives way to Jack Bauer there. Bauer's been an absolute powerhouse these last 3 days. Remembering coming down the gorge into Campbelltown, caught just under 3 kilometers from the line, and got the most competitive rider of the day. That yesterday he was in the breakaway that came back to the fold just about 3 or 4 kilometers from the finish, and he's at it again. He's had that red number on now for 3 days. Looking low, he's going to take some great form across into Europe for the start of the season. Really climbing the hill. Down the laneways of Adelaide city centre, a resurgence of small bars is taking place, and they're adding new vigour to the city's nightlife. From designer brews to wine straight out of the barrel. If you really want to experience the heart of Adelaide, this is where you will find some of its real personality. That will come later, I think, when the wrap party takes place. The riders, for once, will not be getting up early in the morning to take part in the Santos Tour Down Under. This is the last stage, and still the pack continues to be reshuffled. We've had a change in the overall standings because of a sprint bonus. We've built a definitive lead for Thomas de Gendt in the Subaru King of the Mountains. It's not over yet.
It's not, but you know, as we start to see that advantage tickle the 1 minute mark, it'll start to be 600 or 700 meters the advantage. And are we surprised at all to see Orica Scott coming forward to start to wind this pace up? And it's all once again Damien Howson doing all of that pacemaking. 55 kilometers have been covered, 45 kilometers to go down towards the finishing line. 35 kilometers.
Yeah, it's going to be a very fast time. Last year's time was 1 hour 55 minutes. It might be quicker today. The average speed 45.6. This is the previous lap. Damien Howson of Orica really pounding those pedals down there. It's gone up a little bit more, but they're saying 58 seconds the last time check. Just watching the Katusha rider there, Tiago Machado, try to finally grab a bottle. He's on the left, he's got it.
Well, it took him 3 chances, but the fact is they're going flat out coming up through the hydration station there, and the problem is that at speeds like that sometimes it's difficult to get hold of the bottle, and the hands starting to sweat a little bit and a little bit sweaty. But 6th position, the ochre jersey firmly on the shoulders there of Richie Porte. He's just counting out these final few laps.
The long, thin line. Robin McEwen now rejoining us in the commentary box here. We've been going 77 minutes, Robbie. It's been a very interesting race as far as tactics have been concerned.
It's been a great race to watch with all the tactics and the races within the race happening. I was quite surprised that Thomas de Gendt tried to go in an early break, knowing that Jay McCarthy was going to be going for the sprints. But he rectified things, and it was good to see him take those King of the Mountain points at the Subaru Arch. And I think Caleb Ewan would be pretty happy that things didn't come back together for that second sprint. He can now save himself and think about the final sprint for the stage win.
Yeah, but it also indicated that Peter Sagan has got some fine sprinting legs, because he finished in 3rd place in that sprint while he was looking at the other guys and making sure that Jay McCarthy got that 3-second time bonus. It's going to be a fantastic sprint when we come down to the final sprint of the day.
And Peter Sagan assured me he is super motivated to try and win this stage. Now, you guys will also remember, no international rider has won a stage in the Tour Down Under since this stage in 2015, when Walter Whippet won the stage for the Drapac team. It's about time that, now the odds are on for an international win sooner or later, and who better to do it than Peter Sagan himself?
But you know, there's so many great sprinters in the race this year. When you start to look around the list of guys, Edvard Thun seems to have a lot of confidence from his team. Trek Segafredo, Ben Swift has been knocking on the door, and his team will try and lead him out as well. When you start to look down, you know, Nicolas Bonifacio, Sam Bennett, I think he's out of the course here because he will be looking out. And it might be the first time we get a chance to see just how well organised the Bora Hansgrohe lead-out train can be for Peter Sagan. Mind you, he doesn't really need a lead-out train, does he?
No, he's very good at freelancing, freestyling his way through the peloton from a very long way back. But the other guy who's very good at it is Caleb Ewan. And don't forget a guy like Danny van Poppel. He's made a couple of small errors in his judgment of the distance to go. Gone too late, gone too early, but he's been there and thereabouts. And there's a lot of guys who can win this stage. A pretty difficult sprint too, dragging uphill, just over 2% gradient for that last 200 metres. And always towards the end of this stage, you tend to get the breeze just nagging in from the right-hand side and pushing across towards the left barriers. It's easy to get boxed in and mess it up as well.
Well, I just wonder as well, we've seen Jay McCarthy leapfrog Nathan Haas in the overall standings. Now, Nathan Haas has got great form, and in the past, he's been a very good sprinter. With the help of a guy like Mark Renshaw, can he get into the top 3 to maybe get back up into 3rd place overall?
It is possible, and after his ride yesterday, when he came back from the dead, for us he was dead and buried when he swung out of the line on Willunga Hill. But should he be able to finish in the first 3, I wouldn't be shocked. But normally against the best sprinters, things should take care of themselves, and McCarthy should maintain his 3rd place. But this race has given us a lot of surprises so far this week.
But this route, in fact, has changed a little bit since you raced it, because it's a lot quicker from the top of Montefiore Hill to come down towards the finish line. So it makes it a tad more complicated for the sprinters to keep their position in the main field.
Well, the field go on. Of course, the big sprinter is Caleb Ewan. He's won 3 stages so far, so let's hear from him. This is some GoPro footage here as we see coming into Victor Harbour Caleb Ewan. We will in a minute. There he is now. Just look at the determination on the face. I don't know how a rider with the camera got in front of him at this stage, but this was the tricky twist and turn as they approached the finish.
Oh, did you see Peter Sagan ducking and weaving underneath in that corner of the road to try and follow Caleb Ewan? It's at this point that he just misses the wheel of Ewan. Sagan is forced to go left as Caleb Ewan lines up one of the Bora Hansgrohe riders to effectively give him a lead out. Peter Sagan still trying to find his way back around into the wheel. He gets there. Just as he does, that's when Ewan launches out of the slipstream. There's no holding him back. Sagan had made too much of an effort in the wind. Caleb down low, getting aero. Sagan still managing to hold off Bonifacio and Danny van Poppel, but Caleb Ewan, just everything perfect.
But it's that initial jump that gives him the advantage over everybody else. I just wonder if they've been looking at that throughout the week and trying to figure out, how do we beat him? Do we jump first, or on today's stage, do you wait a little bit longer?
I had just that very question from Graham Brown, former professional and dual Olympic gold medalist. Said, how do you beat him? I think don't let him jump first. You've got to at least make it a head-to-head drag race.
Yes, well, don't forget, you can still follow us right up until the last minute on at Tour Down Under. And, of course, questions coming thick and fast. This is a question, again, for Robbie. How do teams train for a sprint finish? Good one.
Well, apart from the sprinter doing his sprint training, making sure he's got the top-end speed and he's got that grunt and power, the teams themselves, on training camps, they will often go and simulate a sprint. Of course, there's no other teams around, but they get the order down pat. They figure out how long each guy is capable of going for at his top speed, his maximum wattage output. and just get it like working like a machine, that everybody knows exactly where they sit in the train. They get used to riding behind the guy in front of them. And that's all well and good till you get to a sort of stage like this, and it gets very difficult to stay together, because something like Montefiore Hill could prove to be a springboard for a late surprise attack.
Okay, well, let's have a look and see if we've got another one there coming from Karen Schultz. If you were to form a team and could choose anyone across the current teams, who would make up your ideal team?
Well, how long have we got left in the broadcast? But if I was going to go from the current ones, I mean, Peter Sagan picked #1, but who wouldn't? But it's so varied. You need to have a balanced team at every race you go to. So I'd also pick Richie Porte, for example. Don't know if I'd pick Chris Froome. I think Richie's the up-and-comer, and I'm looking a bit towards the future.
Yeah, it's always, you've got to pick horses for courses. There are so many different kind of courses throughout the whole of the season. So you've got to be competitive from the start of the season right through to the very end. And still a very high average speed here, just inside 46 kilometers an hour.
Well, it's a terrific average speed. This Luis Leon Sanchez in that turquoise jersey has dropped off the front now, the 05 winner. Bit of work to be done to bring this breakaway back, boys.
A little bit of work still to go, but now we're being shown 22 seconds is the lead, so that's dropped from 54 seconds just a moment ago. So the peloton really picking up pace, and it's so difficult to stay away in a break. Jack Bauer, I'm quite surprised, I've got to admit. I didn't expect him to be out there, but I did speak to him this morning. I saw him going out for an early ride. Guy's been in the break the last 2 days. He thought, I'll go and do a bit extra. He went out for an hour and rolled the legs out. Someone else who did it was Richie Porte and his whole team.
Well, you need it when you go into a violent race like this. But I was just going to ask you, Robbie, because you've ridden this circuit, but it's actually changed since you raced the circuit, and it makes it more complicated for the sprinters, especially with Montefiore Hill, because then it's straight down to the finish line, a kilometre from the top to the bottom.
It's now a lot closer to the finish. Back in the old days, we used to have a bit of an extra loop around the parklands, and from the top to the finish, it would have been more like 2.3 to nearly 2.5 kilometres to the finish. So you've got time to rectify or pull back any late attacks. But now that is a real opportunity, Montefiore Hill, for someone with punch, maybe not a pure sprinter, but someone to go on the attack and potentially stay away. What's not going to stay away, I think, is the break. Last one to do it, 2001, big group, 20 riders or so. David McKenzie went out the winner on that occasion, and it's the only time I can remember a breakaway winning this stage.
This is the composition of the breakaway here. Francois Bidard of the AG2R team. Nice workmanlike group. 2 riders getting in this move from Dimension Data. They'll be happy with that, with their newcomer from Australia, Ben O'Connor, and the national champion of South Africa, Jaco Venter.
Well, the gap's now down to 15 seconds. That's about 250 metres. I'm just thinking through the tactics a little bit. It's coming back pretty quickly. Robin, I just think, is it a tactic maybe to go really hard on the climb of Montefiore to possibly put Caleb Ewan into a bit of difficulty? Or is he going so well that he's not able to get caught out on the short climb up to Montefiore?
I think he's going well enough to handle it.
Well, the race goes on. These boys should take the points on Montefiore and give to Ghent the victory in that. This is the rear of the peloton with the King of the Mountains elect right on the back now, hanging on after being very, very aggressive in the first half out of racing. Number 61 there, Thomas de Gent. Just hopes now it all works out for him in that breakaway. There's nobody worrying him in the competition. It's a perfect scenario now.
I just have to say, Thomas de Gent there, number 61, what a strong boy. I mean, tactically, I don't think that was a very clever move to go into the first break of the day, knowing how important the sprint point was after 8 laps, and you realise to try and get the points in the King of the Mountains, you've got to stay at the front of the race for 10 laps at an average speed in excess of 46 kilometres an hour. But he had the firepower and the tactical knowledge to get back and still get out and get the points.
I think he possibly could have made a mistake thinking that the KOM was coming before the intermediate sprint, and got it back to front, but at least he was able to rectify it with the help of Adam Hansen, the handy little leader. But once he went, the field were really content to just let him nip off the front. Richie Porte said, I'm happy if he can go, he can win it. But speaking of winning it, Jack Bauer is going to be foiled 3 days in a row, but I love his aggression.
And he might well win the most competitive rider again for third day in a row, because he's off here. Little bit of a gap onto lap 16 with Jack Bauer, national time trial champion of New Zealand. Just checking out what's going on.
I think Jack quite likes visiting the podium.
Yeah, but I think he's going to have a very good year this season, because, you know, when a guy like Patrick Lefevre, you know Patrick Lefevre from Quick Step Flooring, he knows how to spot talent. He knows what kind of riders he wants to integrate into his team, and he'll help develop them for a specific program throughout the year.
They are very particular with who they choose and why they choose them. And you're seeing the Quick Step Floors team with a team leader like Tom Bowen, a big guy. They go in search of big riders also to keep him out of the wind. So they are very choosy about who they put in the team, and they have got a great lineup. And another guy I like watching from the team who's riding here, I spoke to this morning, is Gianluca Brambilla, one of the early attackers on this stage. But they've got riders for all courses.
Francois Bidard here, along with Jaco Venter.
They got caught out a little bit by the power of Jack Bauer, who said, well, you guys are not strong enough.
I like that.
The power of Bauer. And I just think that they said, oh, well, carry on, Jack, because you're hurting us too much.
The rest of the breakaways disappeared. Freundlinger, O'Connor dropped back. These two are just wondering if they can, but I'll tell you what, Bauer is really settling into the rhythm there. He's found himself in this situation for the last 2 days of racing, in a possible win situation. All gone wrong at the end for him. Checks over his shoulder, sees he's being chased by 2 riders, and if you look up, it's the peloton. He's really flying at the moment, Jack Bauer. Hats off to him. 16 laps of 20. Damien Howson on the front. How often is he in this situation? Tiago Machado just tucked in behind him, grimacing, puffing and blowing. So too Elias Leon Sanchez in the 3rd place. They are really committed in this chase at the moment, and Bauer is holding them off. There is so much to explore and experience in picturesque South Australia. It's a gateway to the stunning Flinders Ranges, the Arkaroola Wildlife Sanctuary, and the wide-open expanses of the rugged outback. It's the entrance to award-winning wine regions that are within easy reach of Adelaide, and a short ferry ride away from the spectacular Kangaroo Island and all it has to offer. Do you know the Murray River is the 3rd longest navigable river in the world, and it finally meets the sea just an hour's drive from where we are right now. And one of the best things about South Australia is it hosts the Santos Tour Down Under, and doesn't it do a fantastic job? I don't think anybody would argue against that. This great race, now in its 19th year, the first of the UCI World Tours races of the season. We're looking at Jack Bauer now. He's only about 3 hours by aeroplane away from where we are. He comes from New Zealand, and he's prizing open a gap. He's absolutely flying over Montefiore Hill.
Well, he's hoping that he can create the surprise, but I'm really not sure that it's going to survive on a day like this. At this stage, it's just so far and so fast. And just having a quick look, this is how Jack Bauer managed to get himself away from that breakaway group. It's not as if he attacked, he just went so hard that nobody else could stay in his slipstream. And that's why we've got the situation now where we've got this lone leader being chased by Jaco Venter and Bidard. But Jack Bauer has been on the attack for the last of 3 days.
Nice little peloton all together. Just saying, if we hadn't lost Johan Le Bon on day 1, we'd be bringing the whole field to the finish line. That doesn't happen very often.
That certainly doesn't happen very often. And when you look at, for example, the crash we saw on the way to Victor Harbour, it's a credit to a guy like Gorka Izagirre that he's also still in the race. But I guess the other thing is, the riders desperately want to stay in the race, because if they're out, they can't just nip home. It's not a short flight to get back to Europe, so they might as well keep racing, push on through.
Well, they're announcing on race radio for the third day in a row they voted Jack Bauer the most competitive rider of the Santos Tour Down Under. That is unprecedented as well in this event.
Certainly is, and he's tapping out a pretty impressive average speed there, because he pretty much virtually on his own is knocking out 46 kilometers an hour.
Terrific ride by the new time trial champion of New Zealand, as he's going to go to Europe in pretty sharp condition this year with his new team from Belgium, Quick-Step Floors. We're still on lap number 16. There's no more prizes along the way. We have our King of the Mountains now in Thomas de Gent. The rest will be decided on the finishing line.
Well, the two chasers are around about 5 seconds behind Jack Bauer, and 20 seconds to the main field. Well, I think we might have a couple more questions for Robbie McEwen, and there's been some interesting questions thrown up at us over the last week of racing, but I should think today's questions should really be all about the sprint. But this is one that has been posed a few times recently. Is there room for a time trial stage in the Tour Down Under? Robbie, your thoughts?
Yes, technically there is. They could easily include one if they wanted to, but I have heard Mike Turter say on a number of occasions he's not a fan of having a time trial in the race. He thinks it doesn't have the excitement of a road stage where you have the big peloton rushing through the streets. Logistically, it forces longer road closures of wherever you're going to use. And also this race has been characterised by the small time gaps between GC riders, and adding a time trial I think would increase those and maybe take away some of the excitement that we always get right down to the final finish line.
Now this one is very particular, I think, for today. Who's the best lead-out man at the moment, and why?
When you talk of the moment, the best lead-out man is the guy who led out the guy who just won the stage, and that can change day to day. There's some very, very good lead-out men out there. Mark Renshaw's always been renowned, and he gets called the best when Cavendish wins. But if someone else wins, we talk about their lead-out man. So fickle.
Situation in front of the big crowd. 19 seconds. Officially it was 11 when he went through and 21 to the field. He's holding his own, because I think that Fenter and Bidar were still clear, but they're going back to the pack now. I think they've actually picked up.
I think just to put it into a bit of perspective, Robbie, people can't really understand how hard it is to stay off the front of a main field as Jack Bauer is doing here.
No, it gets made to look easy by the professionals, like any sport does, but Jack Bauer, I would imagine his heart rate is firmly in the 180s zone as he's trying to hold the field off with just 4 laps to go. He's inside 20 kilometres. He's literally riding a short time trial now with everything he's got.
We're out on lap 17. Jack Bauer versus the rest of the riders in the Santos Tour Down Under. He's been in this position for 3 days in a row now, dangling at the end of the fishing line with the finishing line not far away. Lap 17 of 20, and the peloton being driven now by Team Katusha. Thiago Machado on the front.
Yeah, always in the front end of the peloton, though, you've got those red and black jerseys of Team BMC, and every time we get that little bit closer to the finisher, Richie Porte must be feeling a little more confident. He was a bit reticent this morning because he knows how dangerous these circuits can be and how easy it is to lose 20, 30, 40 seconds.
It can be very dangerous, and all you've got to look at is if another rider makes a mistake, and that can affect Richie Porte, and that's why he gets kept right at the front of the field, to be kept away from all the other riders who potentially could bring him undone. And there's a few corners on this circuit you may see towards the end of the race. They start going faster and faster, especially that tight left-hand turn when they come off King William Road into War Memorial Drive at the Adelaide Oval. 4 lanes down to 1 lane. It's a little bit off camber, a little bit slippery, a little bit of an indentation in the road in the middle. We've seen a number of crashes there in previous years. So the riders all clench just a little bit as they come through that corner.
Over the top of Montefiore Hill on lap 17. 3 more climbs of that to come. Jack Bauer continues to find his new love for time trialing here, racing alone against the clock.
Well, I have to say, there's just one phrase that comes to mind when I look at Jack Bauer here. Strong boy.
And it doesn't need many more words than that.
55 kilometres done of the proposed. I think we've done a little bit more than that now, because we've only got about 20 kilometres to go.
Well, we've got that same old scenario we've had for the last few days. Jack Bauer off the front and Damien Howson leading the chase. We remember a few days ago, Damien Howson getting quite frustrated he wasn't able to close the gap. And he thought, well, Jack Bauer must be getting some motored assistance, maybe getting a bit of slipstream behind the leading motorbikes, because he said, I'm doing 600 watts and I can't catch him. And Damien said, after that, seeing the footage, I'm actually just going to keep my thoughts to myself. And he's got a new appreciation for Jack Bauer.
Well, Bauer's doing it again now, piling on the power. Over the Torrens River again here in the centre of Adelaide. Oh, the face tells it all here, but this is one of determination as well as pain. Bauer is still punching those pedals. Machado gives himself a shower. Howson's just behind him. So looking at the Santos Tour Down Under now, the ochre jersey of Richie Porte, the concentration of the attacking teammates of Orica Scott down there. It's all eyes down now to try and catch Jack Bauer. The Kiwi is absolutely flying.
I mean, when you look at the position of this man on his bike, that really is a study of power. His body's pretty much locked solid towards the top part, and he sits firmly on that saddle of his, powering a massive gear. And this is actually the hardest part of the course. I think it's actually harder than Montefiore, which is a short, sharp little climb. But here, it's a long false flat all the way along King William Road.
And the riders, well, especially in Jack Bauer's case, just looking so much forward to getting to that U-turn as they come up towards Victoria Square. Turn back down at King William Road. But Jack Bauer, he is holding such a pace that the average speed is still over 45 kilometres an hour, which will see this race finish inside 2 hours for 90 kilometres.
And that is all the work of Jack Bauer, 45.84 kilometres an hour, because he's led now for 3 laps here as he goes into this lap number 18. It's a bit difficult to ride down the tam tracks for that Bora Hansgrohe rider. He's got himself back in anyway. Bauer's right up the road at the moment, turning here on King William Road.
Well, I think we're coming to the point now where it's pretty much like the old fishing game. You've got the fish on the hook, you're just playing it with the main field, letting it run a little bit, pulling it back in. And Jack Bauer, I think, is going to get pulled back into the fold basically because he's started to weaken, especially after 3 days of attacking.
And I just saw him have a little look over his shoulder, and he knows this is about it. He's starting to be reabsorbed, and that is not 15 seconds any longer. But a valiant effort. Damien Howson has done it this time.
Well, that makes it 2-1 then. An hour and 40 minutes has gone by. This is going to be a very fast race here this afternoon.
What I also noticed, the field sort of come a lot closer, but they're not that keen to really go and grab him straight away. It's maybe better to let him hang out there as long as possible, have someone under control, rather than a new attack try to go off the front. He's that close now. Don't be surprised if we get another counter-attack shortly. But I think the best counter-attackers will be saving their effort for the final kilometre and the last time up Montefiore Hill. Here's that moment now from 4 lanes, about to narrow down into that left-hand turn onto War Memorial Drive. Look at the riders diving up the inside.
A good swinging corner there, but they're all getting themselves organised very quickly. The end is nigh, I'm afraid. They're going to snap him up, and it's going to be an incredible last 2 laps, the last 9 kilometres of this circuit race. But Bauer's not going to give up without a fight.
Pretty tenacious. They just say, come on, boys, you want me? You come and get me.
And on cue, Damien Howson goes back onto the front of the peloton. I think he's thinking now, I better get it done now while I've got the chance, just in case Jack gets a 2nd, 3rd, 4th wind.
Well, look at that now. That was one of the slowest laps that we've had since the start. Just over 43.5 kilometres an hour. These guys, it's pretty mean what they're doing. They're just playing with Jack Bauer and leaving him out here in the hot sun to cook.
Well, that really shows you the difference between riding alone and riding in a group. A four-man group quite easily holding 45+ kilometres an hour average, but alone just drags you back, and that 2 kilometres an hour difference where you've seen what that does to the gap.
18th climb up Montefiore Hill, which is quite a nasty little drag when you're doing it every few minutes. Jack Bauer's last lap was 5 minutes and 57 seconds. Best lap we've had is about 5 minutes 7 seconds. Silence in the peloton now as they concentrate. Bauer's just took a glance over his shoulder. He knows where he sits now. They're going to run down around the back of the circuit once over Montefiore and bring him up on the way back.
Start to get to the nervous moments now as they come down. When they cross the finishing line, they'll see 2 laps to go to the finish. That's just 9 kilometres of racing. And I think that's when we'll start to see the teams of the sprinters getting themselves organised. I could notice their Team Sky, Geraint Thomas, with those very well-known white sunglasses of his. He's moving up to the front, and they, on this occasion, might try to get their lead-out train correct for their man, Danny van Poppel. And they're a team that, if they get it right and take him to the line in the right place, they might create the surprise for Caleb Ewan.
They might be able to. That's very strong guys, more classics riders, Rowe, Stannard. I think for Danny van Poppel, he's missing that really pure lead-out man, a guy who could, in his own right, finish in the top 8 in a bunch sprint to really take him in at high speed. So their lead-out train not as strong as some of the others, and you see the teams starting to assemble, the sprinters and their teams getting up to the front now, coming to get 2 laps to go. Get to the front now, establish yourself, don't leave it too late, because that's an extra effort that's going to cost you at the end. And Trek Segafredo, and for sure they are being driven by Koen de Kort, giving instructions up on the left-hand side at 2 laps to go.
2 laps to go. Bauer is flying. They're right on his back heels. He will not let them come up to him as he goes through with a scant 2 seconds advantage as the teams with the sprinters. And this is going to be one big sprint, and we're going to see Jay McCarthy and Nathan Haas mix up in this because they're fighting out who finishes 3rd in this event. Everybody goes out on the last 2 laps, all together now. Francisco Ventoso and Richie Porte cross the line in 3rd place there.
It's all now going to be a question of which team can get the superiority to control the front end of this peloton. On the right-hand side, you've got the black and white jerseys there of Sunweb there looking after Nikias Arndt. On the left-hand side, you've got the black and blue jerseys of Team Sky. But I think, Robbie, you were quite right there. Sometimes what you really need to lead out a sprinter is another sprinter. And that's maybe why the sprint team or lead out for Orica Scott is going to rely very heavily on Roger Kluge, who's got an incredible pedigree as a track racer.
That's absolutely right. We expect to see also Peter Sagan following Caleb Ewan, but hasn't worked out for him so far, so maybe Sagan needs to take the initiative, not follow Caleb Ewan, but make Ewan follow him.
47.8 kilometres an hour. They're pushing it back up towards that 50 kilometres an hour average they attained earlier on in the race. But now they're going to start planning their next campaign here. There's so many riders need the 10-second win bonus. 6 and 4 seconds as they cross the line. It could make a big difference in who stands on the podium in a few minutes' time.
Well, Phil, a few moments ago you mentioned Nathan Haas, and I spotted him right up the front amongst the sprinters and their teams. Jay McCarthy, on the other hand, who has him on a count back, equal time on general classification. Well, Peter Sagan has declared, I will be doing the sprint. I'm going to try and win this stage. That more or less counts Jay McCarthy out. He just has to sit and wait and hope that Nathan Haas can't wiggle his way amongst the sprinters and grab some seconds to get himself back on the final podium.
Yes, I think we're going to be treated to quite an extraordinary sprint finish here. There's so many guys that need to get the bonuses. Caleb Ewan, of course, he just wants to win all of these sprint stages. He's got 3 this week out of a possible 5 stage wins. The other 2 were taken by Richie. They were 2 mountaintop finishes. or hilltop finishes at least. We'll keep an eye out for Nathan Haas as he tries to fight his way into our picture. 1.5 laps to go.
Orica in control already, 2 laps to go. Caleb Ewan around there in about 8th position, and on the front of the bunch, all his teammates. Roger Kluger is up and around there as well.
He's right on the front now, Kluger.
Making sure they're really in control, because with all these corners, you can take control. You dictate the pace. If you go into one of these corners, you can actually prop back into the field, then accelerate. Makes everybody else make more or less an interval to come back into the wheel.
Black jerseys of Team Sky, they're looking for Danny Van Poppel if they can bring him through. We've got the Jumbo riders getting in on the act now. Bert-Jan Lindemann is up there.
Richie Porte trying to just push his way up on the left, so Richie taking matters into his own hands a little bit there. Followed the Lotto Jumbo riders, just making sure he stays at the front. On a circuit like this, sometimes you've got to just do your own thing and make sure you keep moving forward. That's why you don't see the other BMC riders in front of Richie. I just noticed Ventoso going up in search, try and keep him safe.
Now they must protect Richie. These are the most hazardous parts of this race. Now the 3 kilometre rule will apply as we just watch the riders from Bahrain Media just push on there. That's Julien Berard. Also in on the mix, the other rider is Grimet. There he goes, Zagabou Grimet. He's really given them a lift up the hill. They've got a good sprinter on their team. 51 down there, Mark Renshaw. 52 is Nathan Haas, and he's trying to get onto the wheel of one of the best lead-out men in the business. Mark Renshaw, his teammate, trying to get in those couple of seconds that will give him 3rd overall in this race.
I feel Team Sky looking very well organised at the front. Reminds me of the stage into Victor Harbour. They hit the front with just 1.5 kilometres to go. Just ran out of steam on the final run to the line in a slight headwind. Van Poppel got jumped from behind, but they've got 5 riders in a row at the front now. They're just 600 metres or so from getting the bell.
Grimet is setting the pace at the front. The Ethiopian professional here on the Team Bahrain Merida. He's got Team Sky tucking in behind him, and they're looking for Danny Van Poppel. Orica Scott are looking for the man in the red jersey. He's perfectly paced at the moment. Remember, this is not the last lap. There are 4.5 kilometres still to ride. Now, once inside 1.5 kilometres of this last lap, Richie Porte will win the race if there is an accident, because he would receive the same time as the pack. There's the bell. 1 lap to go of the 2017 Santos Tour Down Under, and as is so often happens, it's going to be a group sprint. How many times did you win here, Robbie? Certainly twice, I think 3.
I think 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
We'll have to go to the archives.
Okay,
dig deep.
I'll do that next week. I'll have time next week.
But it's just a constant shuffling of teams taking over the front. Trek Segafredo made a big run up the right-hand side, took over the front, and they've already been washed away. Teams keep coming around like that big washing machine, up left, up right. You get absorbed back through the middle. You've got to be able to ride that wave, that turbulence in the front of the bunch, keep yourself out of the wind and in position. As it's now, UniSA, our winners of the team's classification, this young team, taking charge at the front of the bunch. They don't have a sprinter here, but they're putting on a display.
Which is good to see, but the UniSA has still got the team lead in this race, even after that race yesterday, and they should keep it now, which is an incredible result for the young Australians.
That is a massive result. Brad McGee, I spoke to him this morning. He said he's very satisfied with what the boys have done, leading by over a minute in the team's classification as the peloton around the Victoria Square U-turn for the last time with just under 4 kilometres left to race.
Down the back straight, King William Road for the last time, heading down towards the main circuit again. Very soon the race for the Oka will be over in the event of a crash, because it will be inside 3 kilometres to go. Of course, if you lose real time, then you lose real time. Now repositioning here, this is Roger Kluger getting back on the front, and he's getting over the top of Luke Durbridge. Now where's the man in red? 4th in line. Caleb Ewan is getting into position. Now where is the world champion Peter Sagan? Still a little off the pace here.
Well, it is interesting to note that Roger Kluge, the normal lead-out man for Caleb Ewan, at least on the flat stages, has been put on the front already. And it's Daryl Impey who's second last. He'll provide the final lead-out. So they know they need to go really hard over Montefiore Hill to maintain that position on the front. Peter Sagan on the right, about 15th wheel, just following the blue quick-step rider. And make no mistake, he will pop up when he needs to.
It's getting a bit tough out there, Rob, because if you look to the right here, where all the sprinters have put themselves, they are being squashed. Now there's a complete switch across the road here by the big German Kluge. Took it for the wide speed. 3 Orica boys go round first, taking Caleb Ewan there, man. Locked right on the back wheel of Caleb Ewan for the moment is Geraint Thomas for Team Sky. I can see the world champion's jersey now of Peter Sagan. It's gone again as I look in this direction, but he's not far off the pace.
Well, 4 riders in a row from Orica Scott. Danny Van Poppel, he's got back in touch with his Sky teammates. They're just flanking Orica Scott at the moment on the left-hand side. Peter Sagan still with some work to do, still sitting back outside the top 20 at the moment.
Yeah, right down the bottom of our picture there, Sagan. He's leaving himself an awful lot of work to get through the traffic. Kluge's doing an excellent turn of speed here. Maybe that's why they decided he can go the distance here and leave Daryl Impey to lead out Caleb Ewan.
Well, if Sagan wants to win this stage, this is where he really needs to make a move. You can see him in the middle of picture, that rainbow jersey standing right out, but he doesn't seem to be trying to get his way out of the bunch. Happy to sit right in the middle. But if he wants to take on Caleb Ewan in 3rd position now behind his teammates, he needs to make a move and make it quick.
Geraint Thomas, the boy in black there, looking for Danny Van Poppel, who's been close, oh so close on these sprint stages, but never had the answer to the sprinting Caleb Ewan, or indeed Peter Sagan. But he's right there now, the 3rd rider in black as they go round that corner. Montefiore Hill is now history for the 2017 Santos Tour Down Under, and Orica Green Edge are in charge.
Mark Renshaw on the wheel of Caleb Ewan. No sign of Nathan Haas. Looks like Mark Renshaw is going to ride the sprint for himself. Quick Step Floors taking control at the front of the peloton now, and it's Daryl Impey. Caleb Ewan in his wheel. Francais de Joux hit out now on the front of the peloton, but no cohesion there.
No, there was a bit of rocking and rolling for that right-hander as well. Nathan Haas was there, but he's lost the wheel. Ewan has now moved into 5th place.
Van Poppel
on the wheel of Van Poppel. Yeah.
Daryl Impey winding up now. Caleb Ewan pushing. Look at the head going into Van Poppel. Van Poppel 47 and Ewan fighting for the wheel of lead-out man.
This is Daryl Impey who's pulling them out here. Van Poppel trying to go on there, but watch out for Jay McCarthy. And also behind there is the white jersey of Peter Sagan. And now the excitement of the man we know as the Moss Vale Missile trying to come on the right. Sagan is taking him on again. Up on the inside. He has done it. 4 from 4 possibilities. We finish a Santos Tour Down Under with, in 6 stages, only 2 riders crossing the line in 1st place. All the flat stages to this man from Moss Vale in New South Wales, Caleb Ewan. And let's not forget, the ochre jersey has been won by Richie Porte, and without doubt Richie was the best man in the race, despite the sprinting of this rider here.
Well, Phil, that's only the 3rd time that someone has won 4 of the 6 stages of the Santos Tour Down Under. As you see Richie Porte, not even out of breath, protected perfectly by his team, led around this street circuit. Let's look at the helicopter shot. Caleb Ewan with a head against Van Poppel. Van Poppel shoulder and elbow into Ewan. Daryl Impey, he's unaware of what's going on. And on the right, it's then Bora Hansgrohe come through with Sagan. He pops himself onto Ewan's wheel, lets him take on his own lead out, and then Sagan goes. He tries to anticipate, but Caleb's got too much punch. He holds him on. He's got him at a wheel length, half a bite, and he wins going away. Coming into 3rd place there was from the UAE, Marco Kump, 3rd place getter. Peter Sagan came from so far back, pushed Caleb all the way. Caleb Ewan has just been too good this week.
And Sagan, the world champion, 3 times the bridesmaid to Caleb Ewan this week. The other time he was 3rd, I think. And what a great sprint finish. This young man is going to say farewell to Australia very soon as he takes his his team around the world. Tremendous result. Let's see what he's got to say. And that is Chavez also congratulating Caleb Ewan. Let's go to Paul Sherman.
Well, Caleb, what an amazing performance there to round off a very successful week. 4 wins out of 6 stages.
Yeah, and I can't really believe it. You know, coming into this tour, I actually joked with my girlfriend that I'd win 4 stages, and yeah, really, I can't believe I have with the caliber of sprinters here. You know, it was always going to be hard beating Peter Sagan. Even if he's not in his best form, you know, he's still the best rider in the world at the moment. So yeah, you know, I'm just so happy with the performance I've had.
At 22 years of age, what does this week give you in a form of confidence? Because you're taking on some of the fastest men in the world, and as you said, sprinting against a world champion must be quite cool.
Yeah, you know, it's really great having him here. You know, all the people here love him, and yeah, just having the world champion here to race against, I guess, us locals in front of a home crowd is, yeah, great for the sport.
And what about going forward from this? Because this has given you great confidence for the rest of the season to take on some of the big sprints in Europe now.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's great to get the season off to a good start. You know, it really gets the momentum going into Europe, and you know, I'll probably have a little bit of a break now and get ready again for the European season.
Well done, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, incredibly, 7 victories in 2017 so far. Let's just have a look, though, at how this race was won. Richie Porte on Paracombe set the trend on day 2 last Wednesday. Did all he had to do. He got a clear lead over the rest of the field, and for a while it was just 20 seconds. But when it came to the climb of the Wollonga Hill, he looked at the rivals, the men who can climb like he can, or can they? Because once he opened full power, they were nowhere to be seen. And he now increased his lead to 48 seconds overall. And that will be enough for today's ride down here. There he is. He's all smiles. Pay attention, Richie. Over to Paul Sherwin.
Well, Richie, an incredible week, really, when you see the way that you came out. There were 2 stages you had to dominate on, and you did that to perfection.
Yeah, it's you know, the Tour Down Under was good for me this year. You know, 2 hilltop finishes, and it's just incredible to come back here and win after being so close the last 2 years.
And it's also the team. The team have expressed an immense amount of confidence in you, and that must give you confidence for the rest of the season going forward.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, Team BMC, you know, they sent a team down with, you know, which was so strong, and you know, I really owe it to my teammates. They, you know, each day they got me across the line, and you know, it's a massive credit to them.
But having come back from that very nasty accident to the Rio Olympic Games, how difficult was it to have the form to come and win the Santos Tour Down Under?
Yeah, I mean, after crashing in Rio and you know, injuring myself quite nasty in a nasty crash, you know, it wasn't too hard to be motivated for this race. You know, I had a good break at the end of last season. I've come back refreshed physically and mentally, and
result here. Caleb Ewan, a familiar scene. There's 4 wins this week. Only Andre Greipel and Robbie McEwen have ever done that before in this race. Peter Sagan, he's second again for the 3rd time to Ewan this week. Marco Kump, he can sprint when he wants to. Got up for a 3rd this time. Danny Van Poppel, ever consistent in a 4th. And looking down the list there, Nathan Haas and Jay McCarthy finished 9th and 10th on what is a battle for a countback of this race on points. This is the final result of the 2017 Santos Tour Down Under, the 2nd biggest winning margin in the 19-year history of this event by 48 seconds over Esteban Chavez of Orica Scott. Jay McCarthy, he will get it on countback. He climbs on the podium after finishing 4th last year. Nathan Haas will finish 4th, both locked on the same time. Looking a little bit further, former winner Tom Hilter-Slechter, he finishes this race in 14th. A former winner in Luis Leon Sanchez, he finishes 16th this time around. It's been an incredible race, and we will wait for the final confirmation as we look at the sprint again. But I'm pretty sure that the Uni SA boys, the youngsters, have won the team race today as well. Hats off to them. Caleb Ewan, the sprinter, we're going to know him forevermore as the Moss Vale Missile, because that's where he comes from. bringing the congratulations from Daryl Impey, and also the 4-time overall winner, Simon Gerrans, also gracious here. He won in 2006, 12, 14 and last year. Absolutely terrific riding, and of course when you win 4 stages